Chapter 748. At night, the air was filled with the smell of blood. Creak. The night was as cold as water. The door creaked as it was pushed open and a beautiful figure appeared in the room. The pearls in the room shone brightly, illuminating her eyes. Her slender and graceful figure stood in an alluring arc, like a blooming freesia. Phew! Du Xiaofu, who was sitting cross-legged on the bed, opened his eyes slightly and exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He looked at the woman in front of him and smiled. He stood up and said, "It's so late. Why are you here?" "I just helped senior brother Qi Huang of the Great Wheel sect settle down. This time, it's all thanks to them that the Stone Dragon Empire is safe, so I didn't dare to neglect them." The first princess Cheng Xingnan walked over to Du Xiaofu's side. She pouted her tender red lips and said softly, "So I neglected you. You won't be angry with me, right? This time, I really have to thank them for their help." Du Xiaofu stood quietly beside the graceful figure. He looked at the familiar face that he often thought of and smiled helplessly. Then he asked curiously, "Aren't you in the Divine Light Court? Why are you here with the chosen of the Great Will sect?" "It's a long story. I'll tell you next time." Cheng Xingnan's eyes secretly rippled without leaving a trace. Her red lips parted slightly as a faint smile appeared on the corners of her mouth. After that, she suddenly frowned slightly as she looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "How are you doing in the Ancient Heaven sect? I've heard from the Manchu about you and the Divine Light Court in Fertile City." "I'm doing well in the Ancient Heaven sect." Du Xiaofu smiled and nodded. As for what happened in Fertile City with the Divine Light Court, it was not strange that Cheng Xingnan knew about it. "You shouldn't have killed Guyu. You're in big trouble." Cheng Xingnan looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Although you're in the Ancient Heaven sect and the Divine Light Court can't do anything to you, Guyu's family has a very high status in the Divine Light Court. Once they have the chance, they won't let this matter go. The Divine Light Court won't let this matter rest either. Let's talk about it when the time comes." Du Xiaofu smiled. Since he had already killed Guyu, there was no need to say anything. The Divine Light Court. Sigh. Cheng Xingnan sighed helplessly. She waved her hand and grabbed Du Xiaofu's hand. She leaned on his familiar chest and said, "Why can't you stop worrying? If you hadn't entered the Ancient Heaven sect, you would have been in big trouble this time. Remember to be careful when you see people from the Divine Light Court in the future." Du Xiaofu smiled and squeezed her jade-like hand. It was as smooth as jade and slender as mutton fat. "You're also from the Divine Light Court. Does seeing you count? Don't talk nonsense." Cheng Xingnan straightened her body and moved her hair. A faint fragrance wafted from her body. The corners of her mouth curved into a beautiful smile. "Tell me honestly, did you miss me? I heard that there are many beauties in the Ancient Heaven sect. I missed you." Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly. Looking at the woman in front of him, some ripples appeared in his heart. Hearing this, a bright smile blossomed on Cheng Xingnan's moving face. She quickly raised her head and tiptoed slightly. Her delicate red lips lightly touched the red lips of that resolute face as she said, "I have something to tell you." Du Xiaofu looked at the woman in front of him and said, "What is it?" "This time, we defeated the Tianhu Empire and the other two empires. Naturally, we should celebrate. This time, it was all thanks to senior brother Qi Huang of the Great Luan sect. Therefore, grandfather, father, and I all plan to invite senior brother Qi Huang to the imperial capital to participate in the celebration." Cheng Xingnan looked at Du Xiaofu and raised her head slightly. "You and senior brother Qi Huang seem to have some conflicts. I'm afraid that there will be some unhappiness between the two of you. So, even if it's for me, please bear with it." "Okay, I understand." Du Xiaofu looked at the woman in front of him and smiled faintly. "Thank you. I know it will be hard on you, but for the empire, please bear with it. Senior brother Qi Huang is actually very easy to get along with. You will know in the future. Perhaps in the future, he will have the opportunity to resolve the matter between you and the Divine Light Court." Seeing Du Xiaofu nod, Princess Cheng Xingnan smiled. She knew the temper of the purple-robed young man in front of her. There were definitely not many people who could make him tolerate. However, The Great Luan sect was definitely a huge monster to the Stone Dragon Empire. Don't worry about me. As for the matters of the Divine Light Court, you don't have to interfere. Du Xiaofu nodded and did not care too much. However, the matters of the Divine Light Court were not decided by the Divine Light Court. There were some debts that he would have to settle sooner or later. Princess Qing Xingnan nodded and said, "It's getting late. I'll go back first. I have to return to the imperial capital tomorrow morning. You should rest early." "Okay." Du Xiaofu nodded and watched the graceful figure in front of him slowly leave. Then, he stood quietly in the room for a while, and finally continued to sit cross-legged on the bed. After a while, Du Xiaofu's body was surrounded by a faint golden light, and waves of domineering aura slowly rippled out. The next morning, the morning clouds came out of the mountains, and milky white clouds floated above Enlightenment City. Under the faintly discernible clouds in midair, there was a bloody evil aura that did not dissipate for a long time. In midair above Enlightenment City, 4 terrifying 3-headed golden lions pulled the Phoenix chariot. Their aura was so terrifying that it made the 10,000 people in the city tremble. Dongli Qihuang stood in front of the golden lion Phoenix chariot. He was wearing a red robe and had golden hair. He looked mediocre, handsome, and peerless. The first princess, Qing Xingnan, wore an orange-red outfit that accentuated her long and slender legs and slim waist, causing her already tall and slender figure to become even taller and slender. Her elegant temperament was a little cold, and she was extremely beautiful. Qing Xingnan was becoming more and more breathtaking. The two of them stood in the air, and countless people below looked up at each other. Du Xiaofu looked at the charming woman. Since they parted in the dark forest last time, her aura had become much more vigorous and valiant. Inadvertently, that graceful and delicate body emitted a faintly discernible pressure that caused one's mind to fluctuate for no reason. Du Xiaofu narrowed his eyes. It was not difficult to know that Princess Qing Xingnan must have obtained a great opportunity during this period of time, and her aura was extremely powerful. And in Dongli Qihuang's body, Du Xiaofu could faintly sense that there was an extremely terrifying aura dormant in Dongli Qihuang's body. That aura was very vigorous and powerful. The more he probed, the more undetectable it was. It was mysterious and unfathomable, and it made people feel reverence for no reason, not daring to look at it directly. That's Princess Qing Xingnan. The young man next to her is very handsome. He's not an ordinary person. They seem to be a match made in heaven, just like a perfect couple. In Enlightenment City, countless people were discussing among themselves. Looking at Dongli Qihuang and Princess Qing Xingnan standing together in the air, they were a perfect pair. Such discussions could not escape the ears of the experts in the air. Du Yunlong, Du Xiaomen, Ouyang Shuang, Xia Fei, Eagle King, Gong Dao, Huafan Kong, and the others who were aware of the relationship between Du Xiaofu and Princess Qing Xingnan had mixed feelings when they heard this. "Third brother, you should participate in the national celebration this time. It's time to go." Du Yunlong had come to Du Xiaofu's side. After all these years of tempering, he had become more mature and fierce. His cultivation had improved by leaps and bounds, and he was already a famous expert in the empire. The name of the eldest son of the Du family, Du Yunlong, was known throughout the Stone Dragon Empire. "Second brother, tell them that I won't be going to the imperial capital to participate in the national celebration," said Du Xiaofu with a faint smile. "What?" Du Xiaoman, Eagle King, Gong Dao, Huafan Kong, and the others' faces changed. The Heavenly Beast Hall's contribution in this world gathering couldn't go unnoticed. In the end, Du Xiaofu came and led many experts to kill the experts of the 3 empires, turning the tide of the war. If Du Xiaofu didn't attend the national celebration, everyone would know and there wouldn't be a need for the national celebration. Ouyang Shuang stepped forward and glanced at Qing Xingnan and Dongli Qihuang. She then said to Du Xiaofu, "Are you really not going? Maybe you should go." "Xiaofu, we should go." Not far away, several figures appeared. A beautiful woman in a red dress spoke. It was Yuan Shanshan, followed by Ouyang Ling and North Vanquishing Prince. "Mother, this guy isn't going to the imperial capital," Ouyang Shuang said to her mother. "Xiaofu, why aren't you going?" Yuan Shanshan asked Du Xiaofu doubtfully. Xiaofu, if you aren't going to the imperial capital, there's no need for the national celebration. Without you, we won't be able to win this time. North Vanquishing Prince stepped forward and spoke with dignity. Grandfather Xie, Aunt Shan, I just came back. I want to go back to Stone City to visit my family. I'm just an idle king of the Stone Dragon Empire. You can go, I have to go back to visit my family. Du Xiaofu smiled. He was telling the truth. The Courage King of the Stone Dragon Empire was just an idle king. In comparison, Du Xiaofu really wanted to go back to Stone City. On one hand, he wanted to visit his uncles and clansmen. On the other hand, he wanted to see if there was any news from his drunkard father. It seems like you're really not going. North Vanquishing Prince sighed. Mother, father, I also want to go to Stone City with Sister Xiaoman. Ouyang Shuang said to Yuan Shanshan and Ouyang Ling, all right, when you're at your Uncle Du's house, you have to be polite. Don't be naughty. Ouyang Ling nodded. Xiaofu, I heard you're not going to the imperial capital? A moment later, someone informed First Princess Qing Shengnan. Her expression changed slightly and she walked over. Du Xiaoman, Ouyang Shuang, and Xie Fei stepped back when they saw First Princess Qing Shengnan walking over. Flowers, today is Sunday, please give me a free recommendation ticket to thank my brothers and sisters. Chapter 749. Du Xiaoman, Ouyang Shuang, and Xie Fei stepped back when they saw Princess Qing Shengnan. Looking at the woman, Du Xiaofu nodded and smiled. I just came back and want to go see my family in the Stone City. Is it because of me yesterday? Princess Qing Shengnan frowned and her eyes dimmed. No, I'm just an idle king. You should know me well. When we return, please send my regards to your father. Du Xiaofu said with a smile. All right, I'll go find you when I'm done. Princess Qing Shengnan said to Du Xiaofu apologetically. Brave God King, are you really not going to the imperial capital? A clear voice sounded. It was the south guarding Prince Ouyang Qi, the east guarding prince, and many other kings and marquises. When they heard that the brave God King wasn't going to the imperial capital, they all came to greet him. Yesterday, the brave God King came back to save the empire and led many powerful warriors. That scene was deeply imprinted in everyone's mind. During this period of time, the brave God King led the World Assembly and the Heavenly Beast Hall to fight for the empire. They killed countless enemies and shocked all the kings and marquises. Du Xiaofu said goodbye to the kings and marquises. These kings and marquises fought for the empire and were worthy of respect. Roar. After a while, some kings and marquises returned to the imperial capital. They were going back to celebrate. However, some kings and marquises stayed. Almost all the powerful warriors of the three empires were killed. They still had to recover the fallen cities and take the opportunity to wipe out the other three empires. They still needed powerful warriors. The Stone Dragon Empire's army knew that the Tianhu Empire and the other two empires were no longer a match for the Stone Dragon Empire. They didn't have much power left to resist the Stone Dragon Empire. To the Stone Dragon Empire, there wasn't much pressure to wipe out the other three empires. They just needed time. Looking at the golden lion phoenix carriage in the air, Du Xiaofu's eyes moved. For some reason, he felt an indescribable sadness in his heart. It was an indescribable feeling. Is there good food and fun in the Stone City? Ouyang Shuang stood in front of Du Xiaofu. Her alluring body was tall and straight, and the faint fragrance on her body was pleasant. Her big and beautiful eyes stared at Du Xiaofu as she asked. Du Xiaofu came back to his senses and smiled. Of course, I'll make you some barbecue. Third brother, what about the World Assembly and the Heavenly Beast Hall? Yunlong asked Du Xiaofu. He didn't know if he should continue helping the Stone Dragon Empire reclaim their lost territory or return to the Dark Forest to recuperate. Du Xiaofu turned around and said to his second brother, Du Yunlong, all the demonic beasts and disciples of the World Society and Heavenly Beast Hall return to the Dark Forest to rest and reorganize. This time, I brought back some resources and have already placed them in the chaotic demon city. Du Yunlong nodded. He didn't say anything else about this matter. He turned to Du Xiaofu and said, Third brother, it's good for you to go home. Uncle, my father, and the aunties in the clan are always talking about you. They're all waiting for you. Why don't you and Big Sister come with me? Du Xiaofu asked Du Yunlong. You and Big Sister can go back. The dark forest isn't far from the Stone City anyway, so I can go back often. There are many things to do in the World Alliance right now. I have to take the Heavenly Beast Hall and World Assembly's disciples back to rest. Du Yunlong said to Du Xiaofu with a smile. During this period of time, he had been involved in the affairs of the entire World Alliance, especially the affairs of the World Assembly. He had been personally involved. Du Xiaofu nodded. He was relieved to leave the World Alliance in the hands of his second brother. Du Yunlong was becoming more and more familiar with this task. Now, he was able to convince the entire World Alliance. Silver Condor, before I go back, you have to do me a favor. Du Xiaofu suddenly waved his hand and said to the silver-winged demonic condor. Palace Lord's orders. The silver-winged demonic condor nodded. He was wearing a white robe and his face was extraordinarily handsome. His lips curled up slightly, and his deep eyes were filled with dominance and devilish evilness. His noble aura was complicated. He was emitting a king's aura. Give me some of your blood and the blood of all the beasts in the Heavenly Beast Hall. I don't need too much, but not too little either, Du Xiaofu said to the silver-winged demonic condor. The silver-winged demonic condor froze and nodded. No problem. Give me 2 hours and I'll get it done. The silver-winged demonic condor left. Looking at the silver-winged demonic condor's back, Du Xiaofu said to his second brother, Du Yunlong, second brother, inform all the incense masters, hall masters, guardian elders and Heavenly Beast Hall's commanders to wait for me in the side hall in 2 hours. I have something to say to everyone. Okay. Du Yunlong nodded. So secretive. Ouyang Shuang listened and glared at Du Xiaofu. You go too, Du Xiaofu said to Ouyang Shuang. That's more like it. Ouyang Shuang's beautiful eyes immediately flashed with a smug smile. 2 hours later, in a side hall not far from the room Du Xiaofu stayed in last night, World Association's elders, incense masters, hall masters, Heavenly Beast Hall's commanders, Silver Condor, Red Leopard, and Domineering Mastiff were all there. In addition, third senior brother Yu Wanli, Golden Condor King, Solitary Sword King, and the others were also there. Silver Condor gave Du Xiaofu a jade bottle filled with demonic beast blood essence. There was a lot of it, which gave Du Xiaofu a shock. Then, Du Xiaofu took out a pile of Dao artifacts in front of everyone's shocked eyes. Du Xiaofu was right. They were all Dao artifacts. Du Xiaofu took out a lot of Dao artifacts and suspended them in the side hall. Multicolored light spread out and dazzled the eyes. The energy fluctuations made people's hearts jump. They were all low-grade Dao artifacts. Dao artifacts. These are all Dao artifacts. Oh my god, so many Dao artifacts. I'm scared to death. Guild Master, where did you strike it rich? You've struck it rich. Seeing this, Solitary Sword King, Golden Condor King, Eagle King, Gong Dao, Du Yunlong, Huafan Kong, Ba Ao, and the others were all shocked. Du Xiaofu looked at everyone and said, all incense masters, hall masters, elders, and commanders can choose a Dao artifact. Choose for yourselves. Choose for yourselves? Everyone was dumbfounded and confused. Their gazes immediately turned to Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu nodded and said, everyone choose one that suits you. If you want to be recognized by the Dao artifacts, it will depend on your luck. Thank you, President. Thank you, Hall Master. Hua Fankong, Chao Yu, and the others were overjoyed and thanked him. They sat down cross-legged and began to use their consciousness to communicate with the Dao artifacts. Only with the approval of the Dao artifacts could they successfully obtain the Dao artifacts. Seeing that Chao Yu and the others were already communicating with the Dao artifacts, Golden Condor King, Chanyu Xiu, Flame Carp King, and the others were envious. Du Xiaofu looked at Chanyu Xiu and the others and said, you guys can participate too. Thank you, third young master. Hearing this, Chanyu Xiu, Golden Condor King, and the others thanked him excitedly. Then, they quickly sat down cross-legged and began to communicate with the Dao artifacts. Eagle King, Big Sister, Second Brother, Song Bao Ba Ao, Golden Condor King, Extinction Sword King, Flame Carp King, Stone Turtle King, Mysterious Dragon King, try to communicate with them. Just as Golden Condor King, Song Bao, Extinction Sword King, Ba Ao, and the others were about to try to communicate with the Dao artifacts, Du Xiaofu stopped them. Then he waved his hand and more than 10 Dao artifacts flew out from Du Xiaofu's hand. Multicolored light shot out and energy fluctuations were endless. These were also Dao artifacts. There were a total of 14 of them. However, the aura of each of these Dao artifacts was extremely terrifying. Compared to the Dao artifacts that Du Xiaofu had taken out earlier, they were obviously on a much higher level. These were all middle-grade Dao artifacts. Du Xiaofu had only obtained 5 middle-grade Dao artifacts from the deal between the Ancient Heaven sect and the sect leader's senior brother, Sima Taxing. As for the remaining 9 middle-grade Dao artifacts, no one knew that Du Xiaofu had plundered them from various places and had been hiding them on his body. Oh my god! He's going to be rich! Seeing that Du Xiaofu had taken out another middle-grade Dao artifact, Du Yunlong, Du Xiaoman, Eagle King, Gong Blade, Extinction Sword King, Mysterious Dragon King, and the others gasped. Then they were overjoyed. Then, they could no longer remain calm and began to sit down cross-legged without hesitation. They wanted to communicate with the middle-grade Dao artifacts that they wanted. Even Du Xiaoman, Ouyang Shuang, and Eagle King's Gong Blade were no exception. They were not polite at all. However, Du Yunlong had no intention of making a move. He said to Du Xiaofu, "Third brother, I have 1,000 kills. It's also very handy, so I don't need it. I'll leave it for those who need it to strengthen the forces of the World Society and the World Alliance." Du Xiaofu nodded. Then he looked at Silver Condor, who was the last person besides second brother and third senior brother Yuanli. He asked, "Silver Condor, don't you need a Dao artifact? As a monster beast, it could still possess a spirit artifact or Dao artifact. It was rumored that in this world, there was a top monster beast with a top divine weapon. It stepped into the world and was unstoppable. The power of a middle-grade Dao artifact is amazing." The silver-winged demonic condor looked at the Dao artifacts floating in the entire side hall with a hint of passion in his eyes. But then he shook his head helplessly and said, "Although Dao artifacts are good, I've seen them. There's really nothing suitable for me." "You're really picky. How about this? If you have the opportunity, I'll give it to you." Chapter 750. As soon as Du Xiaofu finished speaking, he threw out an item in his hand. Boom! As Du Xiaofu threw out the item in his hand, a golden light flashed, and a mighty and overbearing aura swept out, shaking the surrounding space. A golden fan appeared in the hall, golden light shooting out in all directions, and a terrifying aura swept out. There were golden talisman runes flashing, as if there was a golden-winged rock shadow flapping its wings, rising up into the sky, and surging with power. Such a domineering and terrifying power caused the surrounding Dao artifacts to tremble violently and prostrate. "This is..." The silver-winged demonic condor's eyes trembled. Within the golden light, there was a golden arc fan with layers of golden feathers, looking fierce and overbearing. It was wrapped in talisman runes, like the golden wings of a rock. The silver-winged demonic condor could feel the aura spreading out from the golden fan. It was the aura of an absolutely overbearing golden-winged rock. "If you have the opportunity, I'll leave this item to you." Du Xiaofu smiled. The heaven-shaking fan was a peak high-grade Dao artifact, a treasure among treasures. However, he already had the Tyrant Shadow and the real rock golden wings, so although the heaven-shaking fan was a treasure with terrifying power, it seemed a little redundant. The silver-winged demonic condor's body had also received the benefits of the golden-winged rock blood. Du Xiaofu felt that if the silver-winged demonic condor could obtain the heaven-shaking fan, in addition to the silver-winged demonic condor's strong body, he would be able to fight head-on even if he encountered a real martial royal realm beginner. "Thank you, Palace Master." The silver-winged demonic condor's gaze was fixed on the heaven-shaking fan wrapped in golden light, and his eyes were filled with shock. He then sat down cross-legged and began to communicate. Yuanli's eyes were filled with astonishment as he looked at everything in the side hall. On the way back with his third junior brother, he increasingly felt that he did not know enough about this junior brother in front of him in the past. "Chi! An hour later, the space in the side hall fluctuated, and a sharp claw Dao artifact with a cold sharpness fluctuated, revealing a sharp aura. Chi! In the next instant, Eagle King Gong Dao's figure flashed out and grabbed the claw Dao artifact with one hand. Almost at the same time, the mysterious Flood Dragon King stood up. A battle spear appeared in his hands. It shone brilliantly and symbols fluctuated. Buzz. Then, the solitary Sword King, Ouyang Shuang, and Du Xiaomen flew out one after another and held the 3 Dao artifact longswords in their hands. Boom! Space trembled as the Stone Turtle King stood up and took action. A Dao artifact that looked like a hammer shone brightly. Symbols fluctuated as it landed in his palm. Then a smile appeared on his face. Then, in this side hall, there was a series of energy fluctuations. Chanyu Xiu, Chao Yu, Flame Carp King, Ba Ao, Song Bao, and the others all received their Dao treasures one after another. Everyone was pleasantly surprised as they thanked Du Xiaofu one after another. Their gazes were filled with reverence and respect. Everyone clearly knew what they had obtained. Hey, Silver Condor seems to have succeeded too. Finally, in this side hall, the Fuyao heaven-shaking wings radiated light and emitted energy fluctuations. Golden talisman patterns flickered, causing everyone's hearts to tremble. Silver Condor stood up and stretched out his hand to grasp the Fuyao heaven-shaking fan in his hand. He had obtained the Fuyao heaven-shaking fan's approval. As long as he was the final owner, he would be able to obtain the Fuyao heaven-shaking wings. Thank you, Temple Master. Silver Condor bowed respectfully, his eyes trembling. Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. Then, a lot of medicinal pills and martial technique resources appeared in his hand. He distributed them to everyone one by one. Of course, there were also Xianyuan pills and Berserk pills. We're rich. We're going to be rich. We're going to be rich. Thank you, Guild Master. Thank you, Temple Master. Everyone was boiling with excitement. Roar. At dusk, in Enlightenment City, a huge Xianyun Scarlet Flood Dragon soared into the sky. 2 figures sat upright on the Xianyun Scarlet Flood Dragon and instantly disappeared into the sunset. Stone City, this ancient border town, was still like a paradise. Although Stone City was not isolated from the world, it was a border town deep in the Savage Beast Mountain range, so not many people paid attention to it. A while ago, the only thing that caught everyone's attention was that Du Xiaofu, the brave God King, came from this border town. Stone City had returned to peace after the incident in the Drifting Cloud County. Of course, this peace could not conceal the martial spirit of Stone City. The brave God King of the Stone Dragon Empire, the overlord of the Dark Forest, and the leader of the World Alliance, Du Xiaofu, came from Stone City. This made the martial spirit of Stone City even stronger. At dawn and dusk, topless children could be seen practicing martial arts everywhere in Stone City. Each of the toddlers looked strong, and their loud and clear voices added to Stone City's elegance. Roar. The next morning, Stone City was peaceful. The voices of the toddlers practicing martial arts echoed. Suddenly, a deep roar came from the distant sky. Within the morning clouds, a giant green and red flood dragon soared into the sky. There were a dozen figures on it. Naturally, it was Du Xiaofu, Yuan Li, Du Xiaoman, Ouyang Shuang, and the others. This time, Du Xiaofu also brought the Golden Condor King, Flame Carp King, and the others with him. However, he let the Eagle King, Gong Dao, Silver Winged Demonic Condor, Subduing Tiger Mastiff, and Blue Flame Scarlet Leopard return to the Dark Forest. Now, Yao Lao was in seclusion in Chaos Demon City. There were no experts. Du Xiaofu was not at ease. Chaos Demon City needed experts to hold the fort. Du Xiaofu stood quietly on the mysterious Flood Dragon King's main body, the Xianyun Scarlet Dragon. His purple robe fluttered in the wind. He was nervous and excited. He had not returned for a long time. No matter where he was, to Du Xiaofu, Stone City's Du family would always be his roots. We'll be there soon. The clansmen will be very happy to see you return. Du Xiaoman said to Du Xiaofu. They had just come out of the ancient desolate space. In the ancient desolate space, they, the Golden Condor King, Chanyu Xiu, and the Stone Turtle King had all refined the Dao treasures they had obtained. They had gained many benefits. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu smiled faintly. At this moment he was nervous and excited. Perhaps this was the so-called homesickness. Although he had been outside for the past few years, Du Xiaofu was able to vividly recall the days when he sat under the stone tablet when he was young once he reached the stone city. However, the stone tablet no longer existed. There was no trace of the mysterious first and second moves. It could only be found by chance. Third young master, did you come from this place? The Golden Condor King asked Du Xiaofu curiously. A small border city could actually produce such a terrifying master. Du Xiaofu smiled and nodded. Stone City was already under his feet. The familiar streets were right below him. Roar! The flood dragon roared. The residents of Stone City rushed to the streets and looked at the huge flood dragon that suddenly appeared in the sky. They trembled in fear. The residents of Stone City had never seen such a huge flood dragon before. They were worried and trembling. Look, there are people on it. They're riding on a flood dragon. How majestic! A few young children and youths were astonished as they stared at the back of the enormous flood dragon. They were extremely envious, and a trace of that image was engraved in their little hearts. When they grew up, they would definitely be as awe-inspiring and magnificent. How valiant would it be to stand on a flood dragon and soar through the sky? Residents of Stone City, don't be nervous. The Du clan has returned. Du Xiaoman's voice echoed in Stone City. She did not want the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon to scare the residents. Du clan, that's the eldest daughter of the Du clan. That's the Vice City Lord. I see it. The Vice City Lord is back. I see it too. The Vice City Lord is back. Our Vice City Lord is the brave God King of the Stone Dragon Empire. He's the leader of the World Alliance. Greetings, Vice City Lord. Suddenly, there was a wave of voices that resounded in Stone City. All the residents of Stone City were excited. The Vice City Lord had returned to Stone City. He was riding on a flood dragon. How domineering! He was a peerless figure from Stone City. All the residents of Stone City were deeply proud of him. After a while, the Scarlet Cloud Flood Dragon circled outside the Du clan. Du Xiaofu and the others landed one after another. Although the powerful auras had been retracted, they still caused the world to seem to have solidified. Du Xiaofu looked at the familiar gate of the Du clan. He felt at ease. The sadness he felt when he said goodbye to the eldest princess, Cheng Xingnan, disappeared. Whoosh whoosh, many figures rushed out from the gate of the Du clan and immediately appeared in front of Du Xiaofu and the others. Brother Xiaofu, Sister Xiaomen, you're back. Brother Xiaofu, Sister Xiaomen. One by one, the younger generation of the Du clan rushed out and looked at Du Xiaofu and Du Xiaoman in front of them. They were all very happy. Your cultivation is much stronger. Your talents are not bad. Du Xiaofu looked at the crowd. Among them were Du Liang, Du Gui, Du Chong, Du Hao, Du Shui, and the others. Their auras were much stronger than before. Xiaofu, Xiaoman, you're back. Many people rushed out from the Du clan. They were Du Zhenwu, Du Zhixiong, and many elders of the Du clan. Ha, Xiaofu is back. Du Zhixiong shouted loudly. He immediately walked to Du Xiaofu's side and gently patted Du Xiaofu's shoulder. His eyes were filled with joy. Greetings, second uncle, eldest uncle. Du Xiaofu bowed. Looking at second uncle, eldest uncle, and the other clan members in front of him, warmth flowed in his heart. Today's update has ended. Xiaoyu will continue to update tomorrow. Please support me with flowers and free recommendation tickets. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Thank you. Chapter 751. Greetings, Master. Greetings, Second Master. The Absolute Sword King, Golden Condor King, Chan Yuxiu, and the others bowed to Du Zhixiong and Du Zhenwu. The formless energy rippled, causing the black tortoise in Du Zhixiong and Du Zhenwu's body to stop. After a while, in the Du family, some of the young fellows in the Du family were now 15 or 16 years old. They were all full of admiration for Du Xiaofu and were not timid. They surrounded Du Xiaofu, wanting to teach him a thing or two. Little brats, let your third brother rest first. Don't bother him. Let your third brother teach you well tomorrow. Du Zhixiong scolded and chased the group of young men and women away. Xiaofu, where's the eldest princess? Why didn't she come back with you? A woman who was Du Xiaofu's aunt pulled Du Xiaofu to the side secretly and looked at Yang Shuang, who was not far away. She asked, "What's your relationship with this beautiful girl? Is she your wife? She's really pretty." "Not bad." Du Xiaofu smiled bitterly and shook his head. That girl was a tomboy. She was not familiar with the Du family now. Once she was familiar with them, the Du family's aunts would have a hard time. "Xiaofu, your eldest sister and second brother are not married yet. Why don't you get married first? Do you still remember Yi Xiaoxi from the Yi family? He's the same age as you. His child is already 1 year old." Another woman came to Du Xiaofu's side and whispered. Du Xiaofu really did remember Yi Xiaoxi from the Yi family. Although he did not leave the Du family much, he still had an impression of Yi Xiaoxi. Du Xiaofu still remembered fighting with Yi Xiaoxi when he was young. He lost. In the end, his eldest sister went over and taught Yi Xiaoxi a lesson. Yi Xiaoxi was beaten until he cried and went back to complain. He did not expect that guy to be married and have a child now. This really surprised Du Xiaofu. "Xiaofu, tonight, we'll make your favorite dishes when you were young." Many women pushed the group of old and young men aside and surrounded Du Xiaofu in the middle. Their saliva flew as they spoke. They did not know what to say. These aunties were talking about trivial matters and trivial matters. But at this moment, when Du Xiaofu heard it, it was unusually comfortable. This was a kind of simple and honest feeling. "You bunch of old women, stop surrounding Xiaofu. He just came back and needs to rest." Several elders and burly men stepped forward with excitement in their eyes. Go. Let's talk to Xiaofu first. This child isn't young anymore. It's time for him to get married. Last time, someone from the Bai clan came to propose marriage. The group of women pushed aside the old men and the burly men. Xiaoans, Xiu, and Du's Du. The Du family residence was very lively. Everyone was happy. Wherever Du Xiaofu went, many young men and women surrounded him, their eyes filled with respect and worship. For hours later, Du Xiaofu set up a seal in the main hall of the Du family residence. In the main hall, only Du Zhixiong, Du Zhenwu, the great elder, the other elders, and the Du family elders were present. Du Xiaofu placed a large pile of Dao tools, talisman tools, spirit tools, elixirs, martial skills, and other cultivation resources in the main hall. Suddenly, a dazzling light spread out and energy fluctuations rippled, causing the entire hall to freeze. Those should be talisman tools. So many spirit tools, so many elixirs. Are those marquis-grade elixirs? Marquis-grade martial skills. All the old men of the Du family trembled as their gazes suddenly landed on the piles of cultivation resources that had caused the profound energy in their bodies to solidify. First uncle, second uncle, elders, there are some Dao tools, king-grade elixirs, and king-grade martial skills here. Keep them as the family treasures of our Du family. As for the rest of the elixirs, martial skills, spirit tools, and talisman tools, give them to the outstanding people in the family. Du Xiaofu said to the Du family elders, first uncle and second uncle. Dao tools. King-grade elixirs. Hearing this, Du Zhenwu, Du Zhixiong, and the Du family elders in the main hall were stunned for a long time. Their bodies trembled, and they could not help but stand up. All the elders were extremely excited. Their eyes were filled with tears of joy, and their bodies could not stop trembling. Our Du family is going to prosper. How fortunate! The great elder said in a trembling voice, his body trembling. To be able to see such a scene in my lifetime, I can die with no regrets. I can finally meet the ancestors of the Du family with my dignity. A white-haired, old man said. His eyes were red and he was very excited. Good. Our Du family has produced a peerless son. The Du family is lucky. A Du family elder trembled with excitement. His eyes were cloudy, and he almost shed tears, but he raised his hand to wipe them away. Great elder, be careful. Du Xiaofu supported the old man. This was one of the great elders of the Du family. When he was young, he gave him candy to eat. My good child, I'm fine. I can live for a few more years. I'm just too happy. The old man held Du Xiaofu's hand with an excited smile. Then he said to Du Xiaofu, "Go and prepare. We're going to pay respects to the ancestors of the Du family in the ancestral hall." Yes, let's pay respects to the ancestors first. Thank the ancestors of the Du family for protecting our Du family. They have protected our Du family from being invaded by evil spirits. The great elder nodded and said. He turned to Du Junwu and said, "Patriarch, what do you think?" "Pay respects to the ancestors in the ancestral hall." Du Junwu nodded. His eyes were red and he was excited. "Elders, first uncle, second uncle, let's go to the ancestral hall tomorrow to pay respects to the ancestors. Let all the children of the Du clan go together. This time, I brought back quite a lot of Beast Lord Realm and Beast King Realm demonic beast blood essence, as well as the blood essence of demonic beasts ranked on the heavenly beast list." Du Xiaofu said to everyone. Seeing the elders of the Du family so happy, he was also happy in his heart. This was his family, his loved ones. What Du Xiaofu wanted was for his family to be happy and healthy. That was all. Beast Lord Realm demonic beasts blood essence. Beast King Realm demonic beasts blood essence. Heavens, there's also the blood essence of demonic beasts ranked on the heavenly beast list. Is that true? All the elders trembled with excitement. A few years ago, in order to obtain the blood essence of the violent stone demonic wolf, the Du family had to use the entire clan's power to baptize a junior's foundation. And now, Du Xiaofu brought back the blood essence of Beast Lord Realm demonic beasts, Beast King Realm demonic beasts, and the legendary blood essence of demonic beasts ranked on the heavenly beast list. If these blood essences were used to baptize the foundation of the Du family's children, their future achievements would be immeasurable. How lucky, this is my Du family's lucky day. The elders of the Du family were so excited that they were crying tears of joy. The entire Du family was bustling with noise and excitement. All the children of the Du family were informed that they would worship their ancestors tomorrow. Therefore, the children of the Du family who were of suitable age would have their foundation establishment baptisms tomorrow. It was said that third brother Du Xiaofu had brought back quite a bit of blood essence from powerful demonic beasts. If he could successfully reach the foundation establishment stage, his future would be limitless. Moments later, outside the Du residence, the Yi family's patriarch, Stone City's Castellan Yi Baolin, by family's patriarch, 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 and many other elders came to visit. They received news that Du Xiaofu had returned to Stone City, so they immediately came to the Du family. When Du Xiaofu heard about this, even though he didn't go to the main gate to welcome them, he went to the main hall to welcome them. After all, City Lord Yi Baolin and the Bai family's patriarch Bai Jiru were all elders of the Stone City. Don't disrespect your elders. This was the teachings of the elders of the Du family since they were young. The Du family's children had to engrave this in their hearts. Du Xiaofu had always kept this in mind. Inside the main hall, the elders of the Du family, Du Junwu, and Du Zhixiong were sitting with them. The main hall was sealed by a restriction, so no one knew what they were talking about. After an hour, the people of the Yi and Bai families left the main hall. Each of them was so excited that their faces were trembling. Some of the elders of the Yi and Bai families were so excited that their eyes were moist. They trembled as they walked, as if they were unable to calm down for a long time. Only they knew that this time, the Bai and Yi families had each obtained a Dao artifact and a lot of medicinal pills and cultivation resources. These were all precious treasures. The Yi and Bai families had also obtained 5 spots to baptize the demonic beasts ranked on the heavenly beast list. How could the elders not tremble and cry tears of joy? In the afternoon, the entire Stone City was in an uproar because the Du family had spread the news. As long as they were residents of the Stone City, they could come to the Du family to have their talent tested. If they had enough talent, they could receive free training from the Du family. If they were suitable, they could even get a free baptism to establish their foundation. All of this was free. The Du family would provide it unconditionally as long as they were residents of the Stone City. The Du family's commanders and guards ran through the streets and alleys of the Stone City to spread the news. In an instant, the entire stone city was in an uproar. No one doubted the Du family's words. In a split second, everyone rushed to the Du family. The Du family was so crowded that not even a drop of water could trickle through. Countless young men and women were waiting excitedly. Some strong-looking children blinked their bright eyes as they waited for their talent to be tested. They seemed to understand but not understand. Some were nervous, some were expectant. At dusk, the red clouds covered the sky. In a pavilion of the Du family, several figures stood quietly, looking at the sea of people outside the Du family's residence. Xiaofu, there are too many people. Did you bring enough demonic beast blood essence? Du Zhixiong looked nervously at Du Xiaofu, who was standing at the front. Second uncle, don't worry. The demonic beast blood essence is enough. Du Xiaofu said to his second uncle, Du Zhixiong. There are so many people. How much demonic beast blood essence is needed? These are all precious treasures. You are too generous. Du Zhixiong glanced at the dense crowd outside the Du family's residence. His heart ached. Giving all the qualified people a free baptism to establish their foundation. This was definitely a big deal. Second brother, Xiaofu did the right thing. Our stone city is a small city on the border. The mountains are high and the emperor is far away. We are short on resources. Although everyone respects martial arts, we have never produced any extraordinary people. Now that Xiaofu has the ability, he should unite the entire stone city and do something for the stone city. In the future, our Du family will definitely be fortunate and be loved by the stone city. Du Zhenwu said to Du Zhixiong. His eyes rippled with brilliance as he sighed emotionally in his heart. Chapter 752. Outside the Du family, many young men and women of the right age were tested for their talents. The Yi and Bai families had also sent out many people to help. Many young men and women were tested to have decent talents. They were able to obtain the blood essence of demonic beasts to build their foundations. If they were suitable, they could even obtain other cultivation resources. After dusk, Du Xiaofu entered the ancient desolate space to refine all the demonic beasts' blood into pure blood essence. He had Zhen Qingquan's help. Kid, you have to be careful of the reincarnated holy son of the Great Luin sect that day. He is not ordinary, Zhen Qingquan said to Du Xiaofu. During this period of time, Zhen Qingquan was not in the ancient desolate space. Therefore, he could clearly hear what was happening in the outside world through the small pagoda. Brother Qingquan, you also know about the reincarnated holy son of the Great Luin sect? Du Xiaofu asked. His hand seals changed and the five-colored spiritual stove symbol cauldron in front of him disappeared. His face was slightly pale. Refining all the blood essence of the demonic beasts into blood essence was a rather vast project. Fortunately, it was not complicated for Du Xiaofu. Other than refining the blood essence of the mysterious Dragon King, Silver-Winged Demonic Condor, Flame Carp King, Stone Turtle King, Tyrannical Mastiff, Azure Leopard and Ice Python King, the rest was simple. It just needed time. Zhen Qingquan's illusory soul moved slightly and glanced at Du Xiaofu. Then, he said to Du Xiaofu, what reincarnated holy son? Actually, it is just a secret technique of the Great Luin sect. It is a technique that makes ordinary people respect it. However, that secret technique is really abnormal and powerful. It makes people afraid. After he said that, Zhen Qingquan's expression turned serious. Du Xiaofu could tell from Zhen Qingquan's expression that the secret technique of the Great Luin sect was definitely not ordinary. He asked curiously, what kind of secret technique is the Great Luin sect? Zhen Qingquan straightened his spirit and said to Du Xiaofu, that is a kind of reincarnation secret technique. When the top experts of the Great Luin sect reach the end of their lifespan or die, they will reincarnate with a wisp of their primordial spirit. At that time, the people of the Great Luin sect will search everywhere for the reincarnated holy child. In order to ensure the success of the reincarnation, the Great Luin sect's child, and reincarnated holy child. So, reincarnated child. The reincarnated holy son of the holy. At a certain time, the reincarnated holy sons, reincarnated holy son, reincarnated saint reincarnated. Of the reincarnation sect, reincarnated holy of reincarnated Di Lu, Yuns is 2. This secret technique is really terrifying. When Du Xiaofu heard this, he was shocked. The Great Lun sect actually had such a terrifying secret technique. The world was indeed big and filled with all sorts of mysteries. For Dongli Chihuang to become a holy son, he has to kill all the reincarnated holy children and take their souls to fuse with them. His methods are extremely cruel. Therefore, that guy is definitely not someone to be trifled with. You have to be careful. Zhen Qingchun reminded Du Xiaofu that the holy son of the Great Lun sect was definitely not a trifled with. Du Xiaofu did not pay much attention to Dongli Chihuang. He frowned and asked Zhen Qingchun, "Brother Qingchun, in that case, shouldn't the Great Lun sect have many reincarnators? When their experts die, they can reincarnate." That's not the case. It is said that the secret technique is extremely difficult to cultivate. Only those who have cultivated the secret technique can do it. Ordinary people can't even dream of cultivating such a secret technique. Zhen Qingchun said to Du Xiaofu, "In order to reincarnate an expert, the Great Lun sect has to pay a huge price. In addition, in order to maintain the orthodoxy of the Great Lun sect, there will only be one reincarnated holy son for a period of time." The next morning at the Du family's ancestral hall, all the Du family members were in high spirits as they gathered at the ancestral hall. With Du Xiaofu and the head of the family, Du Zhenwu, and all the elders of the Du family, the ancestral worship began. All the family members bowed respectfully. Du Xiaofu also bowed at the ancestral hall. Looking at the floating stone coffin in the ancestral hall, he thought of how he often climbed out of the stone coffin. At this moment he thought of his alcoholic father. He did not know where his alcoholic father was and if he was well. After the ancestral worship, all the young boys of the Du family, the Bai family, the Yi family, and the entire stone city began to baptize their foundation with the blood essence of demonic beasts on the Du family's drill ground. Large vats had already been placed on the drill ground of the Du family. The vats contained the blood essence of demonic beasts mixed with hot water. The vats shined brightly and rippled with energy. Roar. The roars of demonic beasts could be heard from the huge vat, roaring and hissing. These were not ordinary blood essences of demonic beasts. To the entire stone city, they were all precious treasures. All the young boys were thrown into the vats by the men of the three families according to their physique and talent. They began to baptize their foundation. Of course, for the young girls of the right age, they were arranged to be baptized in a room. There were women and elders of the three families who were in charge. "Ah, it hurts. Oh my God, it hurts so much. Mom, save me." One by one, the young boys were thrown into the vats. Under the stimulation of the blood essence of demonic beasts, they cried like ghosts and gods, crying for their parents. But this scene fell into the eyes of the old men and the men. They did not care. Instead, their faces were filled with joy. Then, they mercilessly slapped the little guys who were trying to climb out of the vats back down. "All of you better behave. You don't know how lucky you are. In the future, you little guys will know the benefits." The men from the three great clans shouted and roared loudly. They wanted this kind of treatment, but they were already past the appropriate age. If they had this kind of opportunity in the past, then they would not only have this kind of result. God bless the Stone City. Thank you, Vice City Lord. The Yi family, the Bai family, and some of the old men of the Stone City sighed emotionally and thanked the Du family. On the drill ground, the energy fluctuations were like the sun filling the sky. All the old men were shocked, and the entire Stone City was boiling. At this moment, Du Xiaofu arrived at the back mountain of the Du family. At the place where he often secretly roasted fish and meat with Fu Yibai, Du Xiaofu set up a stove, hunted some prey, and started roasting the meat. Sizzle. The aroma of the roasted meat filled the air as it sizzled with oil. The aroma assailed their noses, making them drool. Yuanli, Ouyang Shuang, Extinction Sword King, Golden Condor King, Mysterious Flood Dragon King, Chan Yuxiu, and Zhuang Pingyang surrounded the roasted meat. When the roasted meat was finally out of the oven, these experts no longer looked like experts. They ate heartily and salivated. I wonder how Fu Yibai is doing. As Du Xiaofu ate the roasted meat, he couldn't help but think of Fu Yibai. In the back mountain, there were too many memories with Fu Yibai. Ouyang Shuang stood behind Du Xiaofu. Her graceful figure looked cold. Her big eyes glanced at Du Xiaofu and said, "What are your plans next?" Du Xiaofu raised his eyebrows and looked back at the girl in front of him. He said, "I should be returning to the ancient heaven sect in a few days." Ouyang Shuang's eyes moved slightly as she stood beside Du Xiaofu. After a while, her red lips opened slightly and said, "How is life in the ancient heaven sect? Are you used to it?" "Not bad." Du Xiaofu nodded. "That's good." Ouyang Shuang ate the roasted meat and didn't say anything else. In the next few days, the drill ground of the Du family was very lively. Du Shui, Du Gui, Du Hao, Du Chong, and Du Liang were the new generation. They had cultivated diligently under the personal guidance of the Solitary Sword King, Golden Condor King, Mysterious Dragon King, Flame Carp King, and Chan Yuxiu. When the elders of the Du family, Du Zhenwu, Du Zhixiong, and the others learned that the Mysterious Flood Dragon King, Golden Condor King, Exceptional Sword King, and the others were all Martial King Realm experts and 6-star spiritual talisman masters, they were stunned for a long time. "Oh my God!" An elder of the Du family was so excited that he couldn't sleep at night when he thought that there were more than a dozen Martial King Realm experts in the Du family. Such a lineup was enough to wipe out an empire. A teacher for a day, a teacher for life. Pay your respects. 3 days later, in the main hall of the Du family, Yuanli, Mysterious Flood Dragon King, Golden Condor King, Exceptional Sword King, Flame Carp King, Stone Turtle King, Ice Python King, Chan Yuxiu, and the others were sitting in the main hall of the Du family. In front of Yuanli and the others were Du Shui, Du Hao, Du Gui, Du Chong, Du Ming, and Du Liang, the new generation of the Du family. "Greetings, Master." Du Shui, Du Hao, and the others kowtowed respectfully. Under their pleas, they succeeded in becoming disciples. The Mysterious Flood Dragon King, Golden Condor King, Exceptional Sword King, and the others wanted to take them as disciples. Du Xiaofu didn't object, so Du Hao and the others successfully became disciples. What was worth mentioning was that Du Yu and Du Shui both became Yuanli's disciples at the same time, becoming Yuanli's 2 head disciples. With Yuanli's identity and status in the ancient heaven sect, Du Yu and Du Shui were equivalent to directly becoming inner sect disciples of the ancient heaven sect. If this was in the entire middle continent, it would be a great opportunity. However, at this time, Du Yu and Du Shui, these 2 little guys, still didn't know what the ancient heaven sect was. These 2 little guys were still young and inexperienced. They only knew that their master wasn't an ordinary expert, and he was also Brother Xiaofu's 3rd senior brother. "Xiaoyu, please continue to write. Looking for all the support from the flowers, I would like to express my gratitude to everyone." Chapter 753. Great. This is great. The Du family is going to prosper. The elders of the Du family were so excited that they cried tears of joy when they saw the outstanding juniors of the Du family become disciples of the Martial King realm. Du Hao, Du Yu, Du Liang, and the others were also happy. They had been working hard to cultivate and had built a good foundation. Now that they had become disciples of the Martial King realm, they would definitely benefit a lot in the future. They would become famous experts and strengthen the Du family. Another evening, the sun slowly drilled into the thin clouds. As the sun set in the west, it turned into a red ball. The sunset spread and the clouds covered half the sky. Each layer was fainter than the previous one, covering the entire stone city. Under the sunset, a few figures slowly walked over. The one in front was an old woman who looked to be in her 70s. She wore a plain dress and looked old, but her steps were vigorous. Under her faint eyebrows, her face was full of wrinkles. It was as if the vicissitudes of time were written on her face. Beside the old woman, there was an old man who looked to be in his 50s. The people behind him also had an extraordinary aura. This group of people appeared in the stone city, leaving a trace under the sunset. However, the strange thing was that on the streets, not many people noticed them. They were right in front of them, but it was as if their vision was blurred. Just a guy who came out of a small town like this was able to win Miss Ao Tong's heart? The affairs of the world are hard to predict, hard to grasp. The old woman looked around. Her wrinkled face seemed to be filled with vicissitudes, but her eyes were deep. Elder Ming, we have arrived. We can make a move at any time. The old man in his 50s said to the old woman. His eyes were filled with respect. Make a move at night. Don't alert the others. The old woman's body paused. Her deep eyes were filled with some fluctuations. She said softly, remember my words. Don't hurt that child. Otherwise, don't blame me for being angry. Yes, Elder Ming. The old man nodded. He didn't dare to make Elder Ming unhappy. In the stone city, the setting sun rolled in the golden red clouds, shining with golden light. The courtyard where Du Xiaofu and his drunkard father lived was exactly the same as before. It was not touched at all. In the courtyard, Du Xiaofu lay on the rattan chair that his drunkard father used to lie on until night fell. At night, the sky was full of dew. A crescent moon hung quietly in the southwest sky. The moonlight was somewhat cold and was also somewhat dark. The moon was dark and the stars were bright. However, the stars in the sky gradually became brighter and brighter. They shone on the hazy night clouds like a silver veil that enveloped Stone City. Du Xiaofu crossed his arms behind his neck and raised his head to look at the crescent moon in the clouds. He thought about how his drunkard father was like this all night long. Perhaps his drunkard father was only thinking about his mother and sister back then. Mother, Xiaojing father, where are you? Du Xiaofu muttered as he gazed at the night sky. The hazy moonlight shone on the walls of the courtyard, on the leaves, on the pillars, on the armrest of the rattan chair, and on Du Xiaofu's face. A solemn and holy light flashed. Kid, be careful. There are uninvited guests. They're very strong. I'll hide first and act according to the situation. Be careful. Suddenly, Zhen Qingchuan's voice entered Du Xiaofu's ears. It was as if it resounded in Du Xiaofu's mind, and then disappeared. Boom! It was also at this moment that the surrounding space suddenly trembled. This tremor was soundless, and only Du Xiaofu could sense it. Du Xiaofu immediately became vigilant. He stood up from the rattan chair and the profound qi in his body surged. But it was also at this moment that Du Xiaofu's face changed greatly. He felt the profound qi in his body stagnate, and a terrifying aura that he could not resist at all collapsed. Then, the space distorted and his vision blurred. In the next moment, everything seemed to be just a breath. When Du Xiaofu's vision began to recover, he was already on top of a mountain. At the peak of the mountain, the stars in the sky were bright, and the outline of the mountain range stretched into the distance. Du Xiaofu recognized this mountain. It was one of the peaks in the back mountains of the Du family. Just as Du Xiaofu was looking around vigilantly, several figures silently appeared at the peak of the mountain. With the appearance of these figures, the spatial fluctuations around the surrounding mountain became blurred. A total of 5 figures slowly appeared. Their bodies were wrapped in dazzling light, and their auras spread out. The halo of light around them was like stars. It was as dazzling as the sun, making it difficult for Du Xiaofu to look straight at them. Boom! With the appearance of these 5 figures, a terrifying aura rippled, causing Du Xiaofu's expression to suddenly become extremely serious. In this terrifying aura, Du Xiaofu felt a familiar aura. Bang! A low roar like a drum sounded. A figure walked out from the star-like brilliance. Then, the figure seemed to be illusory. In an instant, it turned into a horse-like monster that was dozens of feet tall. It had a white body and a black tail. It had a horn on its head and tiger teeth and tiger claws on its head. This is... Du Xiaofu's gaze trembled. Under that terrifying aura, the blood in his body began to boil. It's a barge. Du Xiaofu judged that this terrifying monster was a barge that was ranked at the top of the heavenly beast list. It was far above the Xianyun scarlet dragon. Rumor had it that a barge could eat tigers and leopards, fight against gods, and its sound was like a drum. It was extremely terrifying. Bang! The barge roared, and a terrifying aura swept out. Its momentum shook the heavens, and its sound was like a heavy hammer. It rumbled, causing the surrounding mountain to tremble. Chi-la! In a short instant, the terrifying barge charged towards Du Xiaofu. Its front hooves were like tiger claws, densely covered in metallic scales, and emitted runes. Its aura was as oppressive as a mountain, and its sound was like thunder. It directly suppressed Du Xiaofu. Sky-shaking wings. Du Xiaofu hurriedly made his move. In an instant, golden light burst out from his body, as if a dazzling sun. The barge was terrifying, and it was rumored that it came from an ancient bloodline. However, the golden-winged rock was the supreme of beasts. It would definitely not be suppressed by the barge. Chi-la-la! Layers of golden runes erupted. Du Xiaofu waved his hand, directly colliding with the barge's claw. Du Xiaofu's body was sent flying back, and in an instant, the ground beneath his feet shattered. In a short moment of contact, the golden light rippled. The star-like radiance seemed to have sensed something and trembled. Beast Emperor! Du Xiaofu steadied his body. His eyes immediately trembled, and his face paled slightly. Looking at the enormous barge, Du Xiaofu's expression was extremely grave. This was a Beast Emperor. Compared to the mysterious Dragon King, it was many times stronger. The barge's enormous eyes were filled with shock. It was unknown whether it was shock that it was unable to do anything to the human before it, or because it sensed the supreme aura of a demonic beast from Du Xiaofu. Bang! Runes rippled from the barge's enormous body once more. It extended its huge, dustpan-like tiger claws, and its aura was even more terrifying than before. It once again suppressed Du Xiaofu. The roar was like a dragon's roar, like the cry of a divine elephant. The surrounding space rumbled and trembled violently. Its aura was unparalleled and disdainful. Mysterious runes rippled as countless fists flashed in Du Xiaofu's hand. In the end, they condensed into a single fist. Buzz! Du Xiaofu stomped the ground with a thunderous sound, and his figure lunged towards the barge. A fist met the terrifying claw, and the two immediately bombarded each other. In that instant, fist and claw collided, and a thunderous explosion resounded through the surrounding space. Crash! Golden runes scattered in all directions as surging energy ripples spread, causing the surrounding space to rapidly tremble. Rumble! A terrifying storm of energy unfurled like a hurricane, spreading far into the distance. Oomph! The surrounding rocks shattered, but Du Xiaofu was forced back several steps, and a muffled groan escaped his throat. However, this time, the enormous barge's body finally staggered and swayed quite a bit from the impact, and its huge eyes were once again filled with shock. Stop! A voice rang out, filled with vicissitudes of life. However, when it entered one's ears, it was completely silent, as if it was just an illusion. Two more figures silently appeared. One of them was an old man who was over 50 years old and had an extraordinary aura. His gaze landed on Du Xiaofu's body. It was unknown whether it was due to Du Xiaofu's strength or some other reason, but the old man's eyes were filled with astonishment. An old woman slowly walked over. She looked to be in her 70s and wore a plain dress. She looked a little old, but her steps were vigorous. The old woman walked over to Du Xiaofu. Her deep eyes were fixed on Du Xiaofu, and her wrinkled face was filled with shock. She softly muttered, "It's too similar. It's simply too similar. Unbelievable, too unbelievable." Du Xiaofu vigilantly looked at the people in front of him. Du Xiaofu could sense a terrifying aura from the old man and old woman. That aura was so terrifying that it made Du Xia feel that it was even greater than the pressure he felt from his master, Gu Qingyang. The auras from the two people were invisible, but they were all-pervasive, blending into the surrounding space. Similar, too similar, too similar. The old woman walked in front of Du Xiaofu with a gentle look in her eyes. However, on her wrinkled face, there was a deep and spirited look in her eyes, causing Du Xiaofu's heart to tremble when he looked at her. Chapter 754. What is your name? The old woman walked in front of Du Xiaofu and looked at Du Xiaofu from left to right. Du Xiaofu looked at the two people in front of him. His gaze swept over the barge that had retreated and the other four figures wrapped in starlight. He took a deep breath and replied to the old woman, "My name is Du Xiaofu." Du Xiaofu, the old woman murmured with a complicated look on her face. No one knew what she was thinking at this moment. Elder Ming, there shouldn't be any mistakes. Bring him back for testing. The old man, who was over 50 years old, put away his astonishment and said to the old woman beside him in a low voice. However, his gaze was still on Du Xiaofu. The old woman raised her hand slightly and waved to the old man beside her, who was over 50 years old. She looked at Du Xiaofu and sighed softly. This little barren land on the border actually has such a heavenly talent. It's beyond my expectations. Du Xiaofu looked at the old woman in front of him. His eyes flashed with a strange light. He said, "Who are you? Why did you bring me here?" "We are—" The old woman opened her mouth. When the old man heard this, he immediately interrupted the old woman and said, "Elder Ming, this brat doesn't have the right to know who we are. Why doesn't he have the right? Don't forget that he also has the blood of your race. He is just—" The old woman sighed inwardly, and her deep eyes rippled with these fluctuations. Hearing the old man and the old woman's words, Du Xiaofu's expression changed. Suddenly, his gaze trembled. He stared at the old woman and the old man. His expression changed and he said, "You?" The words were at the tip of his tongue, but Du Xiaofu didn't know how to ask. He could only tremble as if he was struck by lightning. The people in front of him, the aura of the figures in the starlight, everything was the same as when Du Xiaofu's father and the North Vanquishing King showed him the scroll space. No wonder he felt a sense of déjà vu from the start. Du Xiaofu felt that these people were the people who separated his family and took away his mother and sister. However, now that he suddenly saw these people, Du Xiaofu realized how little he knew about these people. At this moment, he didn't know where these people came from. Du Xiaofu also didn't know who these people were. Du Xiaofu only knew that these people were all very powerful. They were so powerful that he couldn't resist them. Especially the old woman in front of him. She made him seem small. The old woman looked at Du Xiaofu and asked softly, "Do you know who this person called Xiaojing is?" Xiaojing. Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's heart trembled, but then his trembling heart suddenly calmed down. Du Xiaofu had thought of that name countless times in his heart. He thought that he would be especially nervous after hearing it. But at this moment, Du Xiaofu was abnormally calm. He was so calm that the old woman seemed to be a little surprised. Looking at the old woman in front of him, Du Xiaofu said, "Xiaojing, you should be my twin sister that I haven't seen before. I think I know who you are." The old woman looked at Du Xiaofu. Then she smiled faintly and said to Du Xiaofu, "It seems that you also know some things. I will know in the future. I will know everything." Du Xiaofu looked at the old woman and added, "Definitely. Child, come with me." The old woman looked at Du Xiaofu and said. Her old face forced a smile. On her kind and wrinkled face, there was an imperceptible sigh. "I know that you are very strong, but if you want to take me away, I'm afraid that it won't be too easy." Du Xiaofu was on guard. The aura in his body fluctuated again. Although he did not know why these people wanted to take him away, from their appearance and attitude, Du Xiaofu felt that it was probably not something good. And giving up without putting up a fight was not Du Xiaofu's personality. You overestimate yourself." Sensing the aura fluctuating within Du Xiaofu's body, the old man glanced at him. His eyes were filled with undisguised disdain and contempt. "Child, come with me. You are powerless to resist," the old woman said to Du Xiaofu. "Powerless to resist, but I won't give up without putting up a fight." Du Xiaofu spat out these words. A golden light burst out from his body. His mind fell on the purple-gold heavenly tower behind him. No matter what, he would not give up without putting up a fight. "You're quite arrogant. You really are Miss Ao Tong's child." The old woman secretly praised him. The young man before her could remain calm and collected before them. He faced them calmly without changing his arrogance. Naturally, she could tell what this meant. With that, the old woman looked at Du Xiaofu and continued, "But you still can't resist. Do you want to rely on that strand of soul on you? I'm just a soul, but if you want to take me away so easily, I won't agree." These words rang out from Du Xiaofu's bosom. A small tower floated out from Du Xiaofu's chest. Afterwards, Mist rose up, and Zhen Qingquan's soul appeared before Du Xiaofu. He stared at the old woman and the old man who was over 50 years old. A trace of seriousness flashed through his eyes. At this moment, Zhen Qingquan's seemingly wretched temperament seemed to have completely disappeared. Instead, he was filled with the aura of an expert. He stared at the old woman and said, "I don't know where you're from, but with your strength, why bother making things difficult for a young man? Brother Qingchun has been discovered." Seeing Zhen Qingquan's soul, Du Xiaofu was secretly surprised. He never thought that this old woman would be able to discover Zhen Qingquan's soul, who was hiding in the small tower. Her strength must have reached an extremely terrifying level. I really never thought, that you would be someone who has cultivated that technique." The old woman stared at Zhen Qingchun. Her eyes moved slightly and she smiled faintly. "Back then, I've seen people who have cultivated the technique that you're cultivating now. They were all extraordinary. However, looking at you now, it seems that you've taken an unconventional path, which led to your cultivation going berserk." Zhen Qingchun stared at the old woman. His eyes moved slightly. He looked like a young man at this moment, but he had an imposing aura. He said, "Why bother making things difficult for a young man? You're just a soul. It seems that the people of the outside world are all very arrogant and condescending." The old man seemed to have become somewhat impatient. He looked at Zhen Qingquan's illusory soul and his eyes flickered slightly. If I were at my peak, I would be able to be arrogant in front of you too." Zhen Qingchun stared at the old man. His eyes were filled with absolute fear when he looked at the old woman. "You?" The old man's eyes rippled with coldness. The old woman waved her hand at the old man. She looked at Zhen Qingchun and said, "This has nothing to do with you. There are some things that you don't have the strength to interfere in even if you were at your peak. Seeing that you've cultivated that technique, you should be related to Xiaofu. You should leave." Zhen Qingquan's soul stood in front of Du Xiaofu and said, "You're right. He is indeed related to me. I'm his elder brother. If you want to leave, leave with me." Du Xiaofu stared at Zhen Qingchun, and his eyes flickered. At this moment, his mind was also focused on the purple-gold heavenly tower. The golden rock wings in his body were ready to explode at any time. Under such circumstances, he could only give it his all, regardless of the consequences. Sigh. The old woman shook her head and glanced at Zhen Qingchun. Finally, she looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "You should have the right to know some things about me. Your sister Xiaojing has been suffering from a heavenly disease since she was young. Although she tried her best to find a cure, it was not very effective. In the end, she found a way. Perhaps only you can cure her. If you delay, I'm afraid the consequences will be unimaginable." Looking at Du Xiaofu, the old woman continued, "I've told you everything I should tell you. It's up to you whether you want to leave with us or not." Hearing this, Du Xiaofu's eyes trembled. He looked at the old woman and his eyes flickered. However, his tone was still calm. He said, "How is my sister Xiaojing now?" "She can still hold on for now, but I'm afraid she won't be able to hold on for long," the old woman said to Du Xiaofu. "Okay, I'll go with you." Du Xiaofu looked at the old woman and nodded. "But before I go with you, I want to bid farewell to my clansmen." The old woman looked at Du Xiaofu as an undetectable ripple secretly flashed across her eyes. Moments later, she nodded and said, "I'll wait for you here tomorrow morning. Remember, don't mention us to anyone, or it won't be good for them." "Old Ming, let this little." Just as the old man who was over 50 opened his mouth to speak, he was interrupted by the old woman. "I'll take charge of this matter. Don't make this old woman unhappy." The old man helplessly nodded, not daring to say anything else. The old woman stood silently on the mountain peak as she watched Du Xiaofu and Zhen Qingquan's Yuan spirits leave. It was a long time later that she softly muttered, "Perhaps I would feel better if you didn't go. Why did you agree to go? This is a sin, Sai. They're too strong. I was discovered the moment I tried to spy on them. These people's origins are far from simple. Which faction does your mother come from?" Outside the Du family's residence, Zhen Qingquan's gaze trembled as he regained his wretched temperament. The awe-inspiring aura from before had completely disappeared. I also don't know where they come from. I also want to know. Du Xiaofu softly said. His clear and deep eyes were currently suffused with a faint golden glow. Faint golden blood seeped out from his lower lip. It was the mark of his teeth that had been left behind by him. I had planned to release 5 chapters today, but in reality, I can only finish 4 chapters. Tomorrow, Xiaoyu will continue with the first chapter. Today, I was thinking about some details of the plot and wasted a lot of time. The next chapter is very important to the book, so it will be slower. In addition, many brothers have left comments and opinions on the book review section and WeChat, saying that the first princess belongs to us. Xiaoyu has read them seriously, but Xiaoyu can't say anything, nor can he reveal any spoilers. Please wait for the next part. In the end, I shamelessly asked for flowers to thank everyone. Chapter 755. You seem to be very agitated. Looking at Du Xiaofu, Zhen Qingquan's gaze wavered. Am I? I don't think so. Du Xiaofu turned his head and walked into the Du family. What? Third young master, you're going on a long trip? After a while, Du Xiaofu found Yu Wanli, O Yang Shuang, Du Xiaoman, Mysterious Dragon King, Golden Condor King, and Shan Yuxiu in the courtyard. He informed everyone that he was going to leave for a while. Everyone was confused when they heard this. I have to go out and do something. I don't have the antidote for the goo poison pill on you. You can go to Chaoyao City and get it from the King of Medicine. Stay in the Du family for a while and guide Du Hao, Du Gue, and the others in their cultivation. Du Xiaofu said to Golden Condor King, Mysterious Dragon King, and the others. Little junior brother, where are you going? I have to go with you. Yu Wanli said to Du Xiaofu. He was ordered to protect his little junior brother. Naturally, he had to go with him. Otherwise, when he returned to the Manchu, his master would skin him alive. Third senior brother, I'm going to do something this time. I'll tell you in detail later. I'll go alone. You can go back to the Manchu first. Don't worry, I'll be fine. Du Xiaofu smiled at Yu Wanli. Do my father and uncle know? Du Xiaoman looked at Du Xiaofu and frowned. Du Xiaofu shook his head and said to Du Xiaoman, Big sister, tell first uncle and second uncle tomorrow. I'm afraid they'll ask and be worried. Du Xiaoman hesitated for a while and then nodded. No matter what you're going to do, you have to be careful. O Yang Shuang glanced at Du Xiaofu. Her beautiful face was slightly colored. Du Xiaofu smiled and nodded. Du Xiaofu, I have to follow you. Those guys are definitely abnormally strong. You'll be in danger if you go alone. Moments later, in the courtyard that Du Xiaofu had been living in, Zhen Qingquan's soul glared at Du Xiaofu and said, You're alone. If something happens, you won't even have a companion. Don't worry, I will definitely come back safely. This is also an opportunity for me. Maybe I can really see the person I want to see, Du Xiaofu said to Zhen Qingquan. This time, Du Xiaofu did not want to bring his big brother, Zhen Qingquan, with him. Looking at Du Xiaofu, Zhen Qingquan's illusory soul stared into Du Xiaofu's eyes and said seriously, Are you afraid of dragging me into this? No, Du Xiaofu shook his head and smiled at Zhen Qingquan. I know they're very strong, and among the people I know, you're the strongest. If I really don't come back, I'll be counting on you to save me. That's true. I'm not bragging. Just wait until I'm at my peak. Zhen Qingquan was very pleased with Du Xiaofu's words. His eyes flickered as he said, However, your master Gu Qingyang is not weak either, and the master of the ancient heaven sect, Sima Taxing, has hidden his strength quite deeply as well. However, the strongest is still that old woman. Her aura is unfathomable. She's probably one of the few experts in the world. I've mentioned you to Big Sister. If you need anything, just come to her. Du Xiaofu said to Zhen Qingquan, All right, if I don't come back, I'll wait for you to save me. During this time, the Du family will depend on you. Then be careful. Those people are related to your mother and sister. I hope you won't be in too much danger. Zhen Qingquan didn't say anything else, but his eyes flickered. How could Zhen Qingquan not understand Du Xiaofu's thoughts? That kid didn't want to drag him down, so he didn't bring him along. Du Xiaofu nodded and walked out of the courtyard. His figure flashed and disappeared into the night. Kid, if you really don't come back, even if I have to risk my life as your big brother, I'll definitely make them pay the price. Looking at Du Xiaofu's disappearing figure, Zhen Qingxuan's illusory eyes flickered with runes. A bright moon set in the west. The sky was getting darker and darker. This was the darkness before dawn. Elder Ming, will that kid take the opportunity to escape? On the mountain peak, the old man who was over 50 years old looked at the night sky and the bright moon setting in the west. After hesitating for a moment, he asked the old woman who had been quietly resting with her eyes closed. The old woman opened her slightly closed eyes and said softly, "It would be great if he really escaped. This old woman might feel a lot better." Elder Ming, that kid is just an ant in the outside world. Once we return to the clan, Miss Xiaojing will be safe and sound. The old man said softly. Behind the old man, 5 figures stood together and waited quietly. Their auras were completely restrained, but it also caused the space to freeze. Do you think the flesh and blood left behind by Miss Ao Tong is an ant? He's about the same age as Miss Xiaojing, although his strength hasn't reached Miss Xiaojing's level. Although he's not as strong as Miss Xiaojing, with his martial king cultivation, he can already fight against a martial emperor barracuda. If my eyes aren't blurred, he's also a spiritual talisman master. His spiritual energy is extraordinary. The cultivation method he cultivates seems to be the orthodox cultivation method of the great golden-winged Peng clan. Just this alone is already inconceivable and extraordinary. Facing you and me, he can still advance and retreat without being affected. There aren't many people of the same generation in the clan who have such a state of mind. Do you think such a person is an ant? Even compared to those of the same generation in the clan, a conservative estimate is enough for him to enter the top 100. The old woman stared closely at the old man. Some displeasure appeared in her deep eyes on her wrinkled face. She said, "Qing Yu, you're a protector in the clan. You need to watch your words. Whether you're willing to admit it or not, this Du Xiaofu is Miss Ao Tong's flesh and blood. Half of her blood flows through his body, and so do you. If he's an ant, then it's fine if you slap your own face, but don't slap the clan's face. Those people outside are all watching." Hearing this, the old man trembled slightly. He then said respectfully, "Elder Ming, please calm down. I understand." Sigh. The old woman sighed slightly. Looking at the sky, she mumbled, "Why doesn't this brat run? Why does he have to make this old woman feel uncomfortable?" Swish, just as the old woman spoke, a faint golden figure streaked across the sky and landed on the mountain peak. The faint golden light receded, and Du Xiaofu's face was slightly pale. However, on his resolute face, his eyes were still clear and deep. "You're early. It's not even dawn yet." The old woman looked at Du Xiaofu's clear eyes and asked. Du Xiaofu straightened his body and raised his head. Looking at the night sky, he then looked at the old woman and said, "It's almost dawn. You don't want to be seen by others, and you like to do things sneakily. I could only come early so that you wouldn't be seen." Hearing Du Xiaofu's words and looking at Du Xiaofu's face and eyes, the old woman's gaze moved. She had a feeling as if she was facing a calm seal. The young man before her seemed to have a seal within his body. It seemed calm, but perhaps one day, the seal would loosen, and who knew what terrifying thing would appear. After 2 breaths of time, Elder Ming looked at Du Xiaofu and sighed, "Looks like you have resentment in your heart." "No resentment, only hatred," Du Xiaofu directly replied. The old woman was stunned, then she smiled bitterly and said, "You hate us?" "I only hate that I'm not strong enough." Du Xiaofu looked at the old woman and asked, "How are my mother and sister?" Chapter 756. They are very good. Elder Ming nodded. Du Xiaofu looked at Elder Ming. He didn't know what to say. After a while, he raised his head and asked Elder Ming, "Why didn't they come to find my father and me?" Elder Ming gazed at Du Xiaofu and said, "Do you think that because your mother and younger sister abandoned you and your father all these years, you're resenting them for not looking for you?" Du Xiaofu was silent. He had been worried all this time. However, besides this worry, there were also some doubts buried deep in his heart. After a while, Du Xiaofu took a deep breath. He looked at Elder Ming and asked, "What kind of illness does Xiaojing have? If you can't cure her, can I?" "Miss Xiaojing's illness is very rare. Because you are her twin brother, if they can find a way, you might have an 80% chance of curing Miss Xiaojing." Elder Ming said, "Is it very serious?" Du Xiaofu continued to ask. "We can't delay any longer. Otherwise, the consequences will be unimaginable." Elder Ming looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "In other words, if I go back with you this time, I will be able to see Xiaojing and my mother?" Du Xiaofu looked at Elder Ming. At this moment, his gaze was somewhat complicated. There was some nervousness, some anticipation, and even some fear. However, there was also some happiness. He had always been persistent in his goal and worked hard to cultivate. He wanted to become an absolute expert as soon as possible. It was all so that one day he could see his mother and twin sister. Now, a possible opportunity had suddenly appeared in front of him. He might be able to see the two people he had been thinking about day and night for 18 years. This feeling made it difficult for Du Xiaofu to calm down. "You are only going to save your sister. Stop dreaming about seeing Xiaojing and Aodong. You don't have the right to see them." The 50-year-old man had not said anything due to Old Ming's warning. However, when he heard Du Xiaofu's words at this moment, he could not help but interrupt. There was some hidden contempt in his eyes. Du Xiaofu looked at the old man, then looked at Elder Ming and said, "You just said that only I have a chance to cure Xiaojing?" "That's right. Only you have a chance." Elder Ming seemed to have some doubts, but he still nodded and replied, "Then I suddenly feel that I don't plan to go." Du Xiaofu looked at Elder Ming and suddenly refused. "I am me and Xiaojing is Xiaojing. We've never met before. To me, perhaps she's just a familiar stranger. I still have my own matters to attend to, so it's best if I don't go with you." Elder Ming was stunned when he heard this. There are some things that are not up to you to decide." The old man glared fiercely at Du Xiaofu and said in a deep voice, showing signs of attacking at any time, "I don't know what you need me to do to cure Xiaojing, but I know that since you've come looking for me, it naturally has to be me. I can't beat you now, but if I take things too hard and die, I'm afraid that you won't be able to achieve your goal." Du Xiaofu stared fixedly at the old man. A sharp gaze filled with determination shot out as he said in a deep voice, "There's no need to flaunt your seniority in front of me. If I had cultivated for as long as you, no matter who you are, you wouldn't have the right to be arrogant in front of me." "Brat." The old man's expression darkened greatly. He stared at Du Xiaofu as his aura began to surge, and the coldness in his eyes began to fluctuate. The brat before him shouldn't have come to this world in the first place. In the old man's eyes, he had only insulted the clan and left behind a stain. The clan had always wanted to completely remove this stain, but it just so happened that this stain was difficult to remove. Now, this stain was actually swaying and clamoring in front of him. How could he not be furious? "You don't dare to kill me because you need me. You also don't have the guts to kill me. No matter how much I make you unhappy, you don't dare to kill me. Am I right?" Du Xiaofu stared at the old man in his 50s. A disdainful sneer flashed across his faint golden eyes as he said, "If you have the ability, then kill me now. Do you dare? If you don't dare, the next time you try to kill me, perhaps the one who will die will be you." Du Xiaofu enunciated each and every word clearly. Hearing Du Xiaofu's words, the old man in his 50s had a cold expression on his face. His aura fluctuated, and his eyes were about to spit fire. If looks could kill, then Du Xiaofu would definitely be killed by the old man 10 times over. "Enough." Elder Ming stood in front of the old man in his 50s. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Child, I know that you have some ability and methods. However, believe me, your threat is still insufficient. Perhaps you are right. It is normal for you to hate. If you hate that you are not strong enough." Elder Ming sighed softly. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Come with me. Once we reach there, I promise you that I will try my best to arrange for you to meet whoever you want. As for the outcome, I do not dare to guarantee." Du Xiaofu looked at Elder Ming. A long while later, he nodded slightly and said, "All right, I will follow you." Ayo! A low and deep beast roar sounded as the barge transformed. Elder Ming and the old man in his 50s leaped onto the barge. Hula! A bright moon-like light enveloped Du Xiaofu. Within the light, Du Xiaofu felt the surrounding space distort. Everything in his body came to a standstill. After which, he seemed to have lost consciousness. The darkness before dawn faded away, and the light of dawn slowly awakened the sleeping creatures. The blue dome gradually faded from the sky. Far away from Stone City, a soft mist rose above the barbaric Beast Mountain Range. The mountain range was dyed hazy and illusory by the mist. Stone City was quiet in the early morning. When the first ray of light pierced through the mist, the sound of children and youths practicing martial arts could be heard from all over Stone City. His voice was loud and clear, full of vigor and power. No one knew what had happened last night in a certain part of the Stone City. A super expert had once descended upon this savage wasteland. The Stone Dragon Empire had defeated the Tianhu Empire, Jinshan Empire, and Zhenghong Empire. They had defeated many experts from the three empires' allied forces. The entire empire celebrated. The emperor had ordered the three armies to be rewarded. There were many nobles and generals, and among them, the Saint Child of the Great Lun sect was mentioned. It was said that the Saint Child of the Great Lun sect was a legendary figure. During the 3 days of the celebration, the entire empire was in an uproar. Millions of citizens worshipped him. It was said that during the ceremony, a golden dragon appeared in the Imperial Dragon City. The dragon's roar resounded through the clouds. This made the millions of citizens worship him even more sincerely. It was a miracle. God had blessed the empire. However, some observant people noticed that Courage King Du Xiaofu's name wasn't on the list of names bestowed by the emperor during this national celebration. Even the World Society and the Heavenly Beast Palace were not mentioned. Instead, the Saint Child's name was known throughout the empire. What is the Imperial Palace trying to do? Are they trying to make people disappointed? In the early morning, the North Vanquishing King's skinny and dark face was lit up. There was a faint golden light in his eyes. He murmured, "This time, there was no Heavenly Beast Palace, no World Society, and my grandson. How could there be a celebration?" "Grandpa, your status is different. You can't say too much," Xie Fei said softly. She was wearing a light blue dress. Her waist was slim and her skin was smooth. "Why wouldn't I dare to say it? I heard that Xiaofu killed many people from the Divine Light Court. This time, the Great Lun sect also appeared. The Imperial Palace wants to get rid of him after he has outlived his usefulness. I'm disappointed. The North Vanquishing King's eyes darkened. He clenched his fists in his long sleeves. He was dissatisfied with the Imperial Palace. "No, I'm still alive. I won't allow anyone to bully Xiaofu. I'm going to the Imperial Palace. I'm going to seek justice." As soon as he finished speaking, the North Vanquishing King left. Sigh. Xie Fei sighed softly. She was like an orchid, charming and boneless. A few strands of hair casually fluttered around her waist. Her eyes, which were originally bright and attractive, were now a little dim. She murmured, "First Princess, what are you thinking in your heart?" When Du Xiaofu woke up, he felt that his eyelids were heavy. He immediately opened his eyes and found himself in an antique room. The room was simple, but it was not shabby. It was filled with an ancient aura. Du Xiaofu stood up vigilantly. He checked his body and found that nothing was wrong. The purple gold heavenly tower was still on his back. Everything was fine. What a refreshing smell. Feeling a little relieved, Du Xiaofu took a deep breath. Soon after, his expression became slightly surprised. He discovered that there seemed to be a kind of energy contained within the air. This energy was not like the energy of spiritual herbs or heavenly treasures. It was the energy that existed in the air. If he could cultivate in this environment, he would be able to achieve twice the result with half the effort compared to the outside world. This was enough to prove that this was a precious place. It was rare to see. The door was ajar. There was no one in the room. Du Xiaofu pushed open the ajar door. He looked up and saw the dazzling light of the morning sun shining in the sky. This was a courtyard on the side of a mountain. As far as the eye could see, There were endless mountains. The bright red morning light was like a golden waterfall. It shone on the towering peaks and the cliffs. The mountains were green. One could faintly see the ancient buildings with exquisite carvings. This was a vast space. It was unknown where it existed in this world. The mountains were endless. The mountains were green, the cliffs were steep, and there were surging rivers. The atmosphere of this space was extremely ancient. It was unknown how many years it had existed. It was as if it had existed for eternity. Chapter 757. Du Xiaofu looked around. The energy of heaven and earth was rich in this space. An ancient aura filled the entire space. The vast space was magnificent and the mountains were undulating. At the peak of the mountain, there were clouds and mist rising everywhere. It was auspicious. This was like a place of immortals and gods. It was majestic and sacred. A blue stone path wound around the mountain. Ancient steps led up step by step, leading directly to the peak of the mountain. Around the peak of the mountain, there were countless mountains. They were so tall that they reached the clouds and were surrounded by mist. There was an indescribable aura in the air. It gave people a feeling of immortality. There was an ancient mottled stone pavilion on the peak of the mountain. The surroundings were green and mossy. A figure stood with his hands behind his back. A strand of light purple hair fluttered gently. Under the hair, there was a pair of cold eyes. It made people feel like they were looking at an Azura. There was coldness in the sharpness. However, this guy was also very handsome. The news has been confirmed. The person who was brought here by Guardian Qin Yu and Grandma Ming is called Du Xiaofu. He is now in the clan. A voice sounded. At the bottom of the bluestone stairs, a young man in a brocade robe appeared. In the next moment, the young man in the brocade robe strangely appeared beside the purple-haired man. He said to the purple-haired man, "He is fourth aunt's son. He is Xiaojing's so-called brother. Now that he is here, do you have any thoughts? How can he be compared to Xiaojing? I don't know why the clan wants him to come here. However, I think we should remind him that this is not a place for him to come. He will not be used to this place. We have to do it for his own good." The purple-haired man's voice was very calm. It was so calm that there was no fluctuation in his tone. There was also no fluctuation in his azure eyes. In his eyes, it was as if the mountain was the only thing that mattered. What if he came here with an ulterior motive? Or someone wants him to come and cause trouble? The young man in the brocade robe smiled. Then we will kill him. The purple-haired young man raised his eyes slightly and spoke softly. His tone was still calm and unperturbed. Do you want to do it yourself? The young man in the brocade robe looked at the purple-haired man and asked. He did not seem to find the purple-haired man's words strange. Do you think he's qualified? The purple-haired young man asked the young man in the brocade robe. Then, his eyes moved slightly and he said softly, "Be careful. Don't let fourth aunt know. After all, she is fourth aunt." The mountains were luxuriant and ancient. "Mother, Xiaojing, I'm here. Are you here now?" Du Xiaofu murmured at the peak of the mountain. For the past 18 years, he had been yearning to visit this place, and now he had finally arrived. His mother and younger sister were here, but he couldn't meet them. Du Xiaofu's heart was filled with complex emotions. The emotions that had been suppressed for a long time were stirred at this moment. Goo! Demonic beasts roared. Just as Du Xiaofu finished muttering, the roars of demonic beasts rang out in the distance. A terrifying aura rippled out. A huge bird flapped its wings and circled around. It looked like a black bird with 3 heads and 6 tails. "It's Swanee." Du Xiaofu raised his head and trembled slightly. That terrifying bird was actually a terrifying demonic beast called Swanee. Swanee was ranked on the heavenly beast ranking. It was even higher than the barge beast. It was rumored that if a cultivator could obtain a Swanee, they would be able to suppress all evil beings. Goo! The Swanee flapped its wings in the sky. Its voice was like a phoenix's cry that could pierce through metal and stone. Its body emitted a terrifying aura. Its body was like a dark cloud, and its aura made one's heart tremble. How good would it be if I could drink some blood? It's just that my strength is a bit lacking. I've just reached the Beast King realm, so the effect won't be as good as that barge beast. Du Xiaofu looked at the roaring Swanee before him. If he could devour some of the blood of this Swanee, not only would he be able to refine his bones and cleanse his marrows, he would also be able to suppress all evil creatures. This was a great opportunity. However, this Swanee was only at the Beast King realm, which made Du Xiaofu feel a little regretful. The barge beast he saw in the Du family was already at the Beast Emperor realm. The effect would definitely be much better. Du Xiaofu's current thoughts were as if the Swanee and barge beast were his private stash and could be eaten by him at any time. At this moment, there were more than 10 figures on the huge Swanee. If they knew that Du Xiaofu's first thought upon seeing the Swanee was to drink its blood, who knew what they would think? Swoosh, 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 swoosh. As the Swanee flapped its wings, several figures flew out from the back of the Swanee. They were wrapped in light fluctuations, and the aura around them spread out like a halo, making them look like the sun. Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked over. Soon after, he frowned slightly. When he took a closer look, he saw that the figures wrapped in light were standing in the air. However, it was not difficult to tell that they were all 12 or 13-year-old youths. However, it was undeniable that each and every one of these youths was abnormally powerful. Du Xiaofu frowned slightly and was deeply shocked. Initial Martial King realm. Du Xiaofu was shocked, absolutely shocked. There were a total of 10 youths, and they were all in the Martial King realm. The strongest one was actually at the peak of the Martial King realm. There was also a youth who looked like he was less than 10 years old. Du Xiaofu felt that his aura had already reached the peak of the Martial Lord realm. Huff! Du Xiaofu thought that his self-control was good, but when he saw this scene he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. A 12 or 13-year-old Martial King realm, and a 10-year-old Martial Lord realm complete peak. What kind of concept was this? If any of them were in the outside world, they would be able to instantly kill their peers. There were many talented people in the outside world who might not be able to reach the Martial Lord realm by the age of 30. However, in this place, a youth less than 10 years old was already showing signs of stepping into the Martial King realm. If this news were to spread, it would not only shock everyone, but no one would believe it at all. This should be one of them. How dare he run away? This time, we must teach him a lesson. He asked for it and he dares to run away. We must teach him a lesson. The youths looked at Du Xiaofu one by one. Their eyes were not kind as they chatted. However, although these youths were still young, their temperaments were already extraordinary. They were all outstanding people. At first glance, one could tell that they were dragons and phoenixes among men. Hey, do you want to surrender yourself, or do you want me to teach you a lesson? A youth with big eyes looked at Du Xiaofu and scolded. Although he was young, he was already quite majestic. You have the wrong person. Du Xiaofu frowned. These youths were very young, but their attitudes were extremely arrogant and rude. They were completely different from the moral etiquette of the 4 books and 5 classics that Du Xiaofu was forced to learn when he was young. This made Du Xiaofu unhappy. How dare you quibble and defy orders? You are clearly not one of us. I will ask you one more time. Will you surrender yourself, or will I kill you directly? A youth who seemed to be relatively older than the other youths stepped out of the crowd and looked at Du Xiaofu with disdain and arrogance. This youth did not take Du Xiaofu seriously. The gaze in his eyes showed that he was not joking. It seemed that if Du Xiaofu did not obey, he would immediately kill Du Xiaofu. You must have gotten the wrong person. Your elders invited me here. Du Xiaofu said. He was getting more and more unhappy. He frowned slightly and faintly felt that there was something wrong. Impudent! You actually dare to speak such nonsense. The elders of the clan invited you here. How dare you speak such lies? Surrender without resistance, or you'll be killed on the spot. The young man shouted loudly. Kneel down and surrender yourself. Behave yourself, or you will be killed. The youths shouted one after another. Their voices were like muffled thunder. These youths had received news that many servants from the outside world had escaped today. Therefore, they took the initiative to recommend themselves to capture those who wanted to escape. It could be considered as finding some fun in their daily hard work. Lower your voice. You have the wrong person. Go back to where you came from. Du Xiaofu frowned and did not intend to pay too much attention to these youths. Du Xiaofu turned and left as soon as he finished speaking. The group of youths were petrified. Usually, when the servants saw them, they would be extremely respectful. At this moment, this fellow actually completely ignored them. It was not difficult for them to see that the other party's eyes were simply looking at them as if they were children. Stop. Kneel down and surrender yourself. Let's just kill him as an example to others. One by one, the young men's faces turned red. Then their figures flashed out. More than a dozen youths immediately surrounded Du Xiaofu tightly in the middle. Waves of powerful auras erupted. Don't go too far. Ask clearly and then you will know. It is not a good thing to be so arrogant at such a young age. Du Xiaofu looked at these youths and his gaze became sharper. This is the first time I have encountered such a bold servant. Today, I must kill the chicken to warn others. A youth sneered. Although he was young, his aura was very powerful. Runes rippled around his body. It was as shocking as a mountain. You'd better retreat. Du Xiaofu's fierce expression began to turn cold. Chapter 758. Insolent slave, I'll kill you. The young man shouted. As soon as he finished speaking, he couldn't hold it in any longer and started to attack. His fist was wrapped in dazzling runes as he punched towards Du Xiaofu. The terrifying aura was extraordinary. Let me have a taste of it too. The other young man shouted loudly, and he wasn't willing to fall behind as well. He took a step forward and waved his hand, causing ancient talisman markings to spray out from his palm with the intention of suppressing Du Xiaofu first and seizing the limelight. Although you guys are young, you've angered me. I can still teach you a lesson or two. The look in Du Xiaofu's eyes became intimidating. He directly attacked, simple and direct. His fist collided with the fist of the young man who attacked first. A thunderous sound rang out as runes exploded, shaking the space. Dang dang! The young man immediately staggered back. His small fist was red and numb. Blood dripped from his fist. His fist had been broken by a single punch. At this moment, Du Xiaofu continued to attack in a split second. His body leaped up with the help of the momentum, and a golden palm print directly collided with the second young man. The young man's palm was very powerful. He was a martial king who had just ascended to the martial king realm. However, the aura of his attack was like a mountain. It was enough to instantly kill someone of the same cultivation level. Du Xiaofu's palm exploded with golden lightning. The aura was overbearing and terrifying. In the end, it directly collided with the first young man's palm print. Bang! A dull sound rang out. Under Du Xiaofu's palm, the young man was directly sent flying by a huge force. Blood started to flow from his palm. Ask clearly before you come back. Du Xiaofu looked at the young men around him. His aura was fierce and overbearing. At this moment, the dozen or so youths were looking at Du Xiaofu in shock. They had never thought that such a situation would occur. The slaves are rebelling. Let's kill them together. We can't let them go. After a short moment of stupefaction, the dozen or so youths shouted loudly. The strongest youth rushed towards Du Xiaofu. In that instant, ancient runes flooded the entire space and exploded out in all directions with an extremely formidable aura. A terrifying aura swept towards Du Xiaofu in an instant. Rumble. At the same time, these 10+ young men attacked at practically the exact same time. All of them waved their hands and erupted with talisman profound energy, and they attacked successively and directly besieged Du Xiaofu. Sky shaking wings. Stormy waves palm. Oscillating fist. Du Xiaofu was also enraged at this moment. He waved his hand and attacked. Strands of golden talisman runes erupted and directly blocked the attacks of the dozen or so youths around him. An astonishing aura erupted. These young men were valiant. They were like dragons and phoenixes among men. However, Du Xiaofu wasn't an ordinary person. Those who didn't know Du Xiaofu were fine, but those who knew Du Xiaofu wouldn't dare to provoke Du Xiaofu. Bang bang bang. A deep and muffled sound burst out, and the dozen or so youngsters were sent flying away like the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. Ouch! The youths cried and spat out blood. They cried for their parents. Coo! The bai, and hovering in the air, saw that the situation wasn't good. It immediately flapped its wings and roared to help. Boom! The huge bai-an's body erupted with talisman runes. It flapped its wings and brought about a talisman storm. Its 3 heads spat out 3 talisman light pillars and swept towards Du Xiaofu like thunder. Just as the bai-an's 3 heads spat out the talisman light pillars, Du Xiaofu's figure disappeared in an instant. Chi! Du Xiaofu's figure turned into a strange and unpredictable golden afterimage. He flew up like a floating god and landed on the bai-an's back. Coo! The bai-an roared in shock. Its entire body glowed. Dazzling talisman runes covered it densely. A terrifying force erupted and wanted to blast Du Xiaofu away. Behave yourself! Du Xiaofu shouted. Golden light erupted from his body like the sun rising from the east. The aura of the rock's golden wings suppressed the bai-an, causing fear to appear in its eyes. Coo coo coo! However, the bai-an was extraordinary. Its 3 heads could turn 180 degrees. The 3 heads roared at the same time. Talisman runes erupted from its mouth and swept towards Du Xiaofu. Rock's chaos-shattering claw. Du Xiaofu shouted. A claw mark seemed to be able to distort space and landed on the bai-an's 3 heads. Whoosh! Under the rock's chaos-shattering claw, the bai-an's 3 heads were broken by Du Xiaofu. The 3 heads were separated from their necks. Coo coo coo! The bai-an's 3 heads, whose necks were broken, could still roar in pain at this moment. The miserable roar shook the sky. It was as if one's soul was about to leave his body. It shook the entire mountain. The headless bai-an's wings were still flapping. Talisman runes erupted and swept across the mountain peak. The mountain rocks were shattered and the giant trees were all undulating. It was a terrifying scene. Bang bang. However, it was only a short time. The light on the huge bai-an's body finally dimmed. Then, it fell powerlessly and a large amount of blood splattered. Sigh, what a pity. What a waste of natural resources. What a pity. Du Xiaofu's heart ached when he saw the bai-an's blood spurting out. He lifted the bai-an's 3 heads and stuck out his tongue to lick them with heartache. The bai-an's blood was pure and sweet. Du Xiaofu immediately took out many bottles and jars on his body and began to hurriedly fill them with the bai-an's blood. In Du Xiaofu's heart, this was the bai-an's blood that was even stronger than the Xianyun Scarlet Dragon. The bai-an's blood could be used by him to cleanse his bones and marrow. The younger generation of the Du family and the Stone City could use it to baptize their foundation or temper themselves. This was a precious treasure that was difficult to find in the outside world. It could not be wasted like this. The dozen or so youths were either sent flying or swept away. All of them were crying for their parents. At this moment, when they saw Du Xiaofu tear off the bai-an's head and drink the bai-an's blood, they were all shocked. Their eyes changed greatly as they were frightened. He's a demonic beast, not a human. Run. Quickly inform the experts in the family to kill this bastard. The youths looked at each other. They were absolutely shocked by Du Xiaofu and immediately flew into the air. At this moment, these youths ran faster than rabbits and disappeared from the messy mountain peak in the blink of an eye. At this moment, Du Xiaofu completely ignored these youths. He was completely focused on his bai-an's blood. Only when the last drop of bai-an's blood was squeezed dry did Du Xiaofu feel satisfied. The bai-an's flesh should also be a precious treasure. I can't waste it. Du Xiaofu looked around. He didn't know where this place was. The old man and old woman had also ignored him for some reason. He then looked at the bai-an's body on the ground and licked his lips. After a while, on the mountain peak, Du Xiaofu completed a barbecue stove made of huge rocks. He found some firewood, tore off the bai-an's huge wing and leg, and began to barbecue it. Not long after, a fragrant aroma filled the air. The barbecue meat was greasy and even glowed with runes. It fluctuated with energy, making people drool. Du Xiaofu sprinkled spices and salt that he never forgot to bring with him and began to eat the Bai An's meat. Swoosh swoosh. At this moment, in the distant sky, many figures flew over at lightning speed. Dozens of figures were wrapped in star-like light. Waves of terrifying aura descended like the heavens. The fluctuations of aura made Du Xiaofu, who was sitting on a rock and eating barbecue meat, suddenly raise his head. His eyes secretly fluctuated. Walala, dozens of figures appeared in the sky. Dozens of pairs of eyes were fixed on Du Xiaofu, who was eating barbecue meat. Looking at the Bai and corpse on the ground and the Bai and wing on the barbecue grill, those pairs of eyes were as complicated as fried dough twists, almost twisting together. Third uncle, it's this guy. He tore apart the Bai and injured us. This guy is a demonic beast, not a human. He's too fierce. Among the crowd, there were the dozens of youths who left crying for their parents not long ago. At this moment, under the protection of the adults behind them, the fear of Du Xiaofu had lessened significantly. However, on their childish faces, there was still some lingering fear in their eyes. Gugu. However, at this moment, it was unknown whether it was because of the aroma of the barbecue meat, but the dozens of youths secretly stared at the barbecue meat on the barbecue grill. They licked their tongues, swallowed their saliva, and made gugu sounds. At this moment, many of the adults also involuntarily glanced at the barbecue meat on the barbecue grill. How dare you! A middle-aged man looked at Du Xiaofu, who was still eating barbecue meat, and finally couldn't help but shout. Rumble! The sound waves rolled, and it was as if one could see a substantial sonic boom. The aura covered the sky and the earth, and swept across the peak of the mountain. At the peak of the mountain, sand and stones flew, and the mountain trembled. It was soul-shaking. Chila! Du Xiaofu sat on the rock, and the rock under his but slid back half a foot. However, Du Xiaofu's expression was still calm. He didn't even raise his head after that, and continued to eat his barbecue meat. Kid, you're courting death. Seeing that Du Xiaofu didn't seem to care about him at all, the middle-aged man couldn't suppress his anger. He waved his hand, and his figure pounced on Du Xiaofu. Chi-la! The middle-aged man's 5 fingers slightly curled, and an astonishing rune burst out, directly grabbing at Du Xiaofu's head. Begging for fresh flowers. Thank you everyone. Today's update ends. Chapter 759. Qi. Just at that moment, a figure appeared in front of Du Xiaofu out of thin air. A dazzling light spread out. The middle-aged man's claw was forced to move to the side at this moment. It brushed past the light circle and crushed a huge rock not far away. His expression changed drastically at the same time. The light receded and a seemingly old woman appeared. She looked at the dozens of people in front of her and said, "What do you want?" Numerous gazes looked at the old woman and their expressions changed. Then, they all became extremely respectful. Old Ming, this servant bullied Chao and the others. He even killed a Taowu. He should be killed. The middle-aged man who had just attacked said respectfully to Old Ming, "I brought him back, not a servant. If anything happens to him, you can't bear the responsibility. Go back." Old Ming said softly to the crowd. But Old Ming, an unusually beautiful woman, felt heartache for her child who had been crying for his father and mother earlier. She seemed to want to say something, but was interrupted by Old Ming. He said, "I am the one who brought him back. In that case, I will be responsible for all of you. What do you think?" Hearing this, the beautiful woman's expression instantly changed. "We don't dare. We will leave now." The expressions of the people who came changed secretly. After looking at Du Xiaofu in confusion, they hurriedly left. No one dared to offend Old Ming. Swoosh swoosh, the dozens of people came quickly and left quickly. After that, they disappeared. Du Xiaofu was still sitting on the rock and eating. He didn't even raise his head. Old Ming looked at the mess around him. His gaze swept past the Taowu's corpse and the grill. In the end, it landed on Du Xiaofu's body. His eyes couldn't help but ripple. Old Ming couldn't help but be shocked. Compared to Miss Xiaojing, this guy was too different. They were twins born from the same mother. The younger sister was otherworldly, like a fairy in this world. However, the older brother was ferocious and strong like a wild beast. On the first day he arrived, he dared to eat a Tao Wu and beat up a dozen youths in the clan. When had an outsider dared to be so bold in this place? If news of someone coming here to barbecue a Tao Wu spread, no one in this world would believe that there was such a person. Do you want some? Du Xiaofu finally raised his head and looked at Old Ming's gaze for a long time. He said, "Otherwise, I won't be able to eat if you keep staring at me like this. I don't eat the mortal world and I don't eat meat." Elder Ming looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Are you full? If you are, let me tell you about Miss Xiaojing first." Du Xiaofu looked at Old Ming with his clear eyes. He nodded and said, "Has my younger sister been well these past few years? Has anyone bullied her here?" Old Ming looked at Du Xiaofu, and after a few breaths, he nodded and said, "Other than her natural illness, Miss Xiaojing should be better off than you. The elders here dote on her very much." That's good, that's good." A slight smile appeared on Du Xiaofu's face when he heard this. "Do you know that Miss Xiaojing was born with a sovereign body?" Old Ming asked. "I don't know much, but I do know that my younger sister is born with a sovereign body. It must be extremely powerful," Du Xiaofu said with a smile. From the images that his drunkard father had given him, he already knew that his younger sister was born with a sovereign body. Old Ming sighed. He looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "But the young miss was also born with a natural illness. You've never told me. Just what kind of illness is it?" Du Xiaofu looked at Old Ming. He was worried and uneasy. These people were extremely powerful. If they were unable to save his younger sister, it was obvious how serious her illness was. "Miss Xiaojing suffers from the withering heart illness," Old Ming said softly. "Withering heart illness." Du Xiaofu violently trembled when he heard this. The person was born from the brain of his parents. The essence of his body was connected like a ring and white like silk. The father had 3 elements, the son had 2 kidneys, the son had 2 eyes, and the son had 2 external kidneys. The 3 elements were complete. The 5 viscera, 6 bowels, 4 limbs, and bones were gradually born. Afterwards, the body possessed the energies of the 5 elements, metal, wood, water, fire, and earth, to match the 5 viscera. The lungs were metal, the liver was wood, the kidneys were water, the heart was fire, and the temper was earth. The most important part of the body was none other than the head and the 5 viscera. The 5 viscera and the 5 elements of heaven and earth supported each other. The heart was the head of the 5 viscera. The withering heart illness was the head of the 5 viscera. How serious was it? The withering heart illness can be said to be irreversible. The clan had thought of changing Miss Xiaojing's heart, but Miss Xiaojing was born with a sovereign body. Whose heart could fuse with a sovereign body? Old Ming sighed softly. He looked at Du Xiaofu and sighed. It's already a miracle that Miss Xiaojing was able to hold on until now. The clan has spent a huge price to nurture her heart, but even so, the situation is becoming more and more serious. It can't be delayed any longer. "What do you need me to do?" Du Xiaofu asked Old Ming. They had probably already found a way to get him here. Old Ming looked at Du Xiaofu and did not say anything for a long time. He then looked at Du Xiaofu and said, "Child, I'll take you to a place right now." "You're taking me to see my mother and sister?" Du Xiaofu looked at Old Ming with anticipation and nervousness. Old Ming's gaze was tranquil as he said, "Follow me. You'll know when you get there." A verdant valley, a small bridge overflowing water, an ancient aura fluctuated, exotic flowers and herbs bloomed, and there were even spiritual medicines everywhere. White birds cried in the mountain forest, and spiritual beasts shuttled back and forth. All of them were treasures that could not be seen in the outside world. This was like a fairyland. Du Xiaofu followed Old Ming all the way to a valley. There was a quiet and ancient courtyard in the deep valley. Du Xiaofu had many things to ask along the way, but Old Ming did not mention a single word and remained silent. "Go in. That's Miss Xiaojing's residence." Old Ming looked at the ancient courtyard before him and said to Du Xiaofu, "Sister's residence?" Du Xiaofu's eyes moved, and he immediately became slightly flustered in his heart. His feelings were very complicated, and it was as if his feet were tied to a 50,000-pound mountain, making it difficult for him to move. Sister Xiaojing is inside. Is Mother inside? Could it be that I can finally see my mother and sister that I've been thinking about day and night? Du Xiaofu still walked into the courtyard, step by step. His pace was neither fast nor slow, and his body was slightly trembling. I've let this child down. Old Ming looked at Du Xiaofu, and from the corner of his eyes, he saw the clear eyes that were slightly moist, and he sighed helplessly. Chi. As Du Xiaofu entered the courtyard, a dozen figures arrived from outside the valley. All of them restrained their auras, and then they landed behind Old Ming. There was a total of 11 people, and the one at the front was the old guardian that Old Ming called Qinyu. But at this moment, the 10 people behind Qinyu were all middle-aged men in armor. Their armor was covered in runes, and all of them were high-grade Dao artifacts. Old Ming, leave the rest to us. You've already done enough for that brat. Otherwise, he wouldn't even have the qualifications to enter this place. Qinyu said to Old Ming. Qinyu, listen to me. He's here to save Miss Xiaojing's life. If you dare to hurt him or make him suffer, don't blame me for taking advantage of my seniority. You should know what I'm capable of. Old Ming's gaze was tightly fixed on Qinyu's body. Yes, I'm only here to watch over this brat. Before saving Xiaojing, I want to prevent him from causing any trouble. There are still some people in the clan who have other thoughts, so I'm here to protect him. Hearing this, Qinyu immediately lowered his head and did not dare to look directly at Old Ming. I've sinned. No wonder the old patriarch said that it's difficult to sever my mortal heart, and that I'm ultimately unable to take that final step. Old Ming muttered softly. After his voice sounded, he disappeared without a trace. The courtyard was quiet and antique. Du Xiaofu entered the courtyard. The decorations were simple, and there was a faint fragrance that was pleasant. Du Xiaofu turned his head. Old Ming did not follow behind him, and walked into one of the rooms. This was a room that looked like a study. However, there were many Dao artifacts, pills, and spiritual herbs placed here. There were energy fluctuations, and multicolored light was emitted. There were many bookshelves on the walls. Du Xiaofu saw many ancient books, and with a single glance, he knew that they were not young. However, there were also many martial skill jade slips and beast bones placed on the bookshelves. None of them were ordinary items. If this was not his sister's residence, Du Xiaofu would have been unable to control his hands and would have taken all of them away. It was hard to imagine that someone would place beast bones, martial skills, and many pills and spiritual herbs in the study. The corners of Du Xiaofu's mouth slightly moved, and a slight smile appeared on his face. Was this his sister's study? He did not know if she usually read or trained in this study. From the looks of it, his sister's personality was not the same as an ordinary girl's. Within the study, Du Xiaofu saw an ancient wooden desk. Many rice papers were neatly arranged on the desk, and there was a portrait on the desk. The portrait was black and white, but when Du Xiaofu's gaze landed on it, his heart immediately trembled fiercely, as if he had been struck by lightning. The portrait was of a man with a resolute face. His slender eyebrows slanted to his temples, and his thick and long eyelashes made his originally rigid and powerful face appear much gentler. Chapter 760. The man in the portrait had a pure smile on his thin lips. Drunkard's father. Du Xiaofu shuddered. The man in the portrait looked much younger than his drunkard's father, but he was definitely his drunkard's father. Du Xiaofu took the portrait and realized that there were 3 other portraits below it. The second portrait was of a woman. This woman was out of this world, proud and independent. She looked like a fairy who had descended from the heavens. This is Mother's portrait. Du Xiaofu's heart trembled once again as if he was struck by lightning. Du Xiaofu had seen the woman in the portrait in the illusory scroll back then. This woman was his mother. In the third portrait, Du Xiaofu saw himself. It was like looking into a mirror. That face, that gaze, nose, and lips were exactly the same. The only difference was that he was wearing a long gown in the portrait. There was no purple gold on his back. In the fourth portrait, Du Xiaofu's heart shuddered again. It was a 17 or 18-year-old woman. Her delicate face looked otherworldly. Her eyes were like stars. Du Xiaofu carefully looked at the woman in the portrait. The woman's facial features were almost exactly the same as his own, yet she was so beautiful. Xiaojing. Du Xiaofu touched the woman's face in the portrait and murmured. His voice was a little hoarse. Brother from afar, do you know that there is a sister like me? One day, I will leave this place to find you and father. Wait for me. Du Xiaofu saw a line of beautiful words at the back of the portrait. It was signed Xiaojing. There were many portraits on the old wooden desk. Du Xiaofu looked at them one by one. Most of the portraits were of his drunkard's father, his mother, himself, and his sister, Xiaojing. He and his sister, Xiaojing, had the most portraits. They had been drawn since they were 11 or 12 years old. He could tell that the first portrait was very unfamiliar. The two of them were almost exactly the same. On the back of each portrait, there was a line of beautiful words written by his sister. They were all fragments of her life and her longing for her father and brother. I actually have an older brother. Mother told me that I have a twin brother who looks exactly like me. He's with father now. Mother said that when I'm completely healed, I can go find my brother and father. I don't know why, but the people in the clan are not willing to talk about my father and brother. They even said that they don't know what is going on. I'm so happy. Today, Mother drew father, Xiaofu Hai, Xiaofu, 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 he is as I imagined. Xiaofu Hai, Xiaofu. Xiaofu, Xiaofu. Xiaofu, Xiaofu Hai. Xiaofu, Xiaofu. Xiaofu, Xiaofu Hai. Xiaofu, 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 Xiaofu Hai, Xiaofu, Xiaofu, Xiaofu Lu. I'm 16 this year. My birthday is also my brother's birthday. I have my mother with me, but I don't know if my brother has a father with him. I really want to be together as a family. I even saw mother secretly crying today. I know that mother also misses father and brother. My heart hurts again today. I'm worried that I'm going to die, but I haven't seen my brother or father yet. Big brother, we were born on the same day and are of the same age. People say that big brothers will dote on their little sisters. Will you dote on me in the future? If I make you angry, will you give in to me? Big brother, Dad, where are you now? I miss you so much. I heard that twins have telepathy. I'm thinking of you now. You, who are far away, are you also thinking of me? Or, perhaps you still don't know that you have a little sister here who is thinking of you. On each portrait, there was a line of beautiful words. What was written on it was Xiaojing's longing. Drip, drip, tears fell onto the fine writing paper, dripping onto the lines of beautiful words. Du Xiaofu's tears streaked across his resolute face, dripping down his cheeks and falling to the ground. His tears soaked the small words on the rice paper as if they were melting Du Xiaofu's heart. At this moment, Du Xiaofu could no longer suppress his emotions. His eyes were filled with hot tears. When love is deep, even men have tears. Not to mention that men don't cry easily, that's when love is not deep. Sister, his voice was wet and hoarse, and his throat was choked. Looking at the beautiful girl in the portrait, Du Xiaofu's heart was trembling. Rumble. Suddenly, the space trembled, and the energy of heaven and earth fluctuated in the courtyard. Talisman array. Du Xiaofu's spiritual power was released, and his figure disappeared. Outside the courtyard, the energy fluctuation disappeared without a trace. But at this moment, Du Xiaofu looked around him. He could feel that there was an extremely powerful talisman array set up around the courtyard. Once someone touched it, they would immediately suffer a great calamity. Are you trying to trap me? Du Xiaofu looked at the distance of the courtyard. Elder Ming's figure had already disappeared. When the old man appeared outside the courtyard, he had many people wearing armor with him. His aura was very powerful. You don't have the qualifications to trap you. You think too highly of yourself. We're just afraid that you'll cause trouble. Actually, this is for your own good. We're afraid that you'll have an accident before you can save Xiaojing. This is to protect you. Protector Qin Yu looked at Du Xiaofu, who was in front of the courtyard, with a sneer in his eyes, and said, Brat, don't blame me for not warning you. You'd better not come out. Although this small talisman array is ordinary, with your cultivation, even if you're 100 times stronger, you'll only be asking for trouble if you want to come out. Since you want me to save someone, why do you need to trap me? What do you mean for my own good? If you don't give me an explanation, I'll definitely not be trapped. Du Xiaofu shouted. Everything made Du Xiaofu feel that it was far from what he saw on the surface. Staring at Protector Qingyu, Du Xiaofu said in a deep voice, "Don't tell me that my mother and sister Xiao Jing are also trapped here by you?" Explanation? There's no need to explain to an ant like you. Fortunately, the clan didn't kill you and your lowly father. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to save Xiao Jing now. Your purpose of living is to save Xiao Jing. This is the will of heaven. Protector Qingyu looked at Du Xiaofu and smiled coldly, saying, "As for your mother and Xiao Jing, they've always been good, but they're not people you can mention. It won't take long for a lowly child outside to be completely dealt with. This is the will of heaven. Your heart will exist for Xiao Jing. When the time comes, Xiao Jing will solve the problem and be born supreme, shining brightly in the world." I understand. The withering heart disease requires a change of heart. You need to change my heart. This is the purpose of you bringing me here. Du Xiaofu looked at Protector Qingyu. His heart was in turmoil and he couldn't calm down. His mind was filled with complicated thoughts and his body began to tremble. You're Xiao Jing's twin brother. The two of you were born from the same womb and are connected by blood. There's an 80% chance that your heart will be given to Xiao Jing. Protector Qingyu looked at Du Xiaofu and said coldly, "When the time comes, you shouldn't exist in this world." Du Xiaofu's body trembled. His thoughts were in a mess. He thought that he would be able to see his mother and sister, whom he had been thinking about day and night. But it turned out that his purpose of coming here was only because they wanted his heart. 10 years ago, he walked out of Stone City, stepped into the Dark Forest, entered Tianwu Academy, barged through the Stone Dragon Empire's Dragon City, swept through the Dark Forest, stepped into the Central Plains, and finally entered the Ancient Heaven sect. He defeated all his enemies along the way, all for the day when he could enjoy his mother's love, see his sister, and reunite with his family. And now, he had come to the place that he had been thinking about day and night. He thought that he would be able to see his sister in advance just because he couldn't find her. Only now did he realize that this was a dead end for the other party. They wanted his heart to save his sister. If they wanted his heart, he would have to die. Did his mother know? Did his sister know? Du Xiaofu's heart was filled with complicated feelings. He also felt an inexplicable sense of loss. Your heart is the reason why you stayed in this world. I'll tell you everything that should be told so that an ant like you can give up on other thoughts. Don't think about some things that you can only dream about. It's just a daydream. Qingyu sneered. It wouldn't be long before this pile of stains that couldn't be wiped clean would be completely cleaned. Du Xiaofu raised his head. The golden light in his eyes suddenly blazed. He stared at Qingyu and shouted, "I want to see my mother and sister now. As long as they ask, my heart won't be able to reach the apex. But if you bully me, coax me, or lie to me, I won't let you off." Childish ant who doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. You don't even know where you are. This isn't a place where ordinary people and ants like you can stir up waves. Looking at Du Xiaofu's fluttering hair and burning eyes, Qingyu's face was filled with disdain. "I don't care who you are. If you bully me, lie to me, or hurt my family, I'll flatten you even if you're the earth. Even if you're the sky, I'll pierce through it." Du Xiaofu roared like a beast. Golden light shot out from his eyes. The sharpness in his eyes was monstrous. Looking at Du Xiaofu's current appearance, Qingyu's eyes trembled. He felt as if he was looking at the cub of a peerless, ferocious beast, which made him feel uneasy. But Qingyu didn't take it to heart. He was just an ant that was about to die. The outcome was already decided. 2 chapters in a row. It's hard to write these 2 chapters separately. I'm afraid that I won't be able to find that feeling, so I've put them in a row now. I hope that everyone can feel something from these 2 chapters. Little Yu continued to write and once again asked for fresh flowers to thank everyone. Chapter 761. Du Xiaofu's wrath, there's no need to talk to you. You already know enough. Qin Yu did not say anything else. He waved his hand at the 10 men behind him and said, "You guys keep an eye on this kid. If anything goes wrong, you will be held responsible." As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Yu left and disappeared in an instant. The auras of the 10 middle-aged men fluctuated as they stared at Du Xiaofu. Some of them were curious, but most of them were fierce. Crash. At this moment, in front of the courtyard, a dazzling golden light ignored the array and rushed out. The golden light was like a 5-fingered mountain with golden talisman runes flashing. As the space fluctuated, a strange energy seemed to be able to distort the void. Chi. Within the 5-fingered mountain, a golden figure like a flash of golden lightning appeared outside the array in the courtyard. The golden mountain disappeared and Du Xiaofu's figure appeared. Looking at Du Xiaofu's figure and sensing the terrifying and domineering aura of the golden mountain phantom, the 10 men in battle armor were stunned. All of this was beyond the imagination of the 10 men in armor. The purple-robed young man was able to ignore the array and appeared in front of them. This was too unbelievable. Go back or be suppressed. While the 10 men were shocked, they moved together and runes burst out from their armor. The armor was a middle-grade Dao artifact. Its aura was majestic and suppressed Du Xiaofu. Boom! The 10 men were wearing middle-grade Dao artifact armors and their cultivation was at the complete Martial King realm. The 10 complete Martial King realm cultivators were just servants in this place. Get out of the way or be killed. Du Xiaofu was fearless. His heart was raging like a volcano that was about to erupt. These people bullied him, tricked him, trapped him, and wanted to kill him. How could he allow himself to be captured? Suppress. One of the men in armor did not say much. They were ordered to guard and could not afford to lose. Otherwise, the consequences would be severe. As soon as he finished speaking, the man in armor waved his hand and dazzling runes burst out from his armor. The aura of a complete Martial King realm cultivator burst out. He clenched his fist and directly suppressed Du Xiaofu. Mysterious Soul Eye. Du Xiaofu made his move. Runes burst out from his eyes and directly covered the man in armor. At the same time, he waved his hand and a green and red light burst out, a sword radiance, swish, the man in armor's eyes. When he recovered, the sword radiance burst out from his mouth. Only that part of his mouth was not covered. The sword radiance. The sword radiance burst out from his mouth. Bang! Golden sword light began to overflow from the armored warrior's mouth. His head exploded and blood gushed out. Then, his body went limp and fell to the ground. The man in armor was a complete Martial King realm cultivator. He was protected by a medium Taoist armor. Even a Martial Royal realm cultivator from the outside world would find it difficult to kill them. But now, Du Xiaofu's sword radiance had pierced through the weakest part of his armor and killed him directly. Oh no! Let's join forces to suppress him. The remaining 9 people did not take it seriously and were not too worried. When they saw one of their companions being killed directly, they were shocked. At the same time, the 9 of them changed their expressions and attacked at the same time. The 9 of them attacked. 9 of them were in the complete Martial King realm. At least 3 of them were at the peak of the complete Martial King realm. They were 1 step away from the Martial Royal realm. Qin Yu asked them to guard here, not to guard Du Xiaofu. He just asked them to guard this place so that others would not dare to act rashly. The news of Du Xiaofu's arrival in the clan was sealed. Not many people knew about it. However, the clansmen who knew about it were extremely sensitive. Although they had not acted rashly, he had to pay attention to them. As for Du Xiaofu, Qin Yu was not worried at all as he was in the talisman array. Although the talisman array was just a small one, it was enough to trap a Martial Royal Realm consummation cultivator in the outside world. However, Qin Yu did not expect that an ordinary talisman array would not have much effect on Du Xiaofu. Boom! The 9 complete Martial King Realm cultivators attacked at the same time. The terrifying aura was extremely terrifying. Light shone brightly and the armor's runes were dazzling. It was like a sun in the sky. The pressure was strong and surging. You bullied me and trapped my family here. You have gone too far. Du Xiaofu shouted loudly as a cold aura shot into the heavens. Golden light erupted from his clear eyes, as if a golden-winged rock had appeared. The golden light from the runes within his body spread out like a rising sun, and a pair of talisman rune wings that glittered with golden light extended from his back. Boom! At this moment, an overbearing and fierce aura suddenly swept out from Du Xiaofu's body. The wings flapped and light overflowed. Magnificent light filled the sky. Rock descends to the 9th heaven. Furious sword slashes the sun. Holy sword roar. Tyrannical shadow change. Golden light bloomed in the sky. The rock flapped its wings and soared to the 9th heaven, sweeping across the sky. The overbearing and terrifying aura overflowed and suppressed everything. The azure gold light shone brightly. The sword radiance spread out at lightning speed. Layers of golden light bloomed. The dazzling azure gold runes bloomed. The aura was domineering and terrifying. The sword radiance was like a dragon soaring into the sky. It was like a rock flying in the sky. It contained the power to move mountains and seas. It could shake mountains and rivers, make mountains collapse and the earth crack. It could destroy everything. Du Xiaofu soared into the sky and bathed in golden light. He was the only one who could suppress everything. Rumble! The rumbling sound in the valley was so loud that it reached the sky. It made the space tremble. A series of dazzling runes burst out. In the earth-shattering sound, it was as if the valley was about to be shattered. Puff, puff, puff. The armored figures were sent flying like kites with broken strings. Their mouths were dripping with blood. Bang, bang, bang. Some people's armors cracked and their runes shattered. Some people's mouths were pierced by the sword radiance. Their heads exploded in their armors. Out of the 9 martial king realm experts, 5 of them were severely injured and 4 of them were killed. Du Xiaofu stood in the air. The rune wings on his back were shining with golden light. He was like a golden-winged rock flying across the sky. The azure gold sword whip in his hand was like a dragon. It surrounded Du Xiaogong's body and was dazzling. It was so cool that it moved people's souls. The remaining 5 people looked at Du Xiaofu with pale faces. His terrifying aura was like that of a supreme demonic beast. It made their hearts tremble. Inform the experts. We are no match for this young man. One of the 5 people exclaimed. Then, 5 figures soared into the sky and tried to escape. Stay! Du Xiaofu shouted. The tyrant shadow sword whip in his hand swept across the sky. It was like a dragon flying across the sky. It wrapped around one of the armored figures. The armored man's eyes were filled with shock. Just as he was about to use all his strength to break free, a fist ruthlessly swept across his back. Bang! With a dull thud, blood spurted out of the armored warrior's mouth and his body staggered forward. Bang! But then, another golden fist landed on his head like a ghost. His mouth was dripping with blood, and his head was buzzing. If it wasn't for the protection of the helmet on his head, that punch would have been enough to blow his head apart. Puff! The armored man suffered a heavy blow, and his body fell from the mountain peak, causing the ground to shake. Then, Du Xiaofu restrained him, and the armor on his body began to turn into runes and retreated into his body. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The other 4 armored warriors took the opportunity to escape and instantly flew into the distance. Take me to Xiaojing. Du Xiaofu shouted as he captured the middle-aged man in his hand. His eyes were filled with coldness. The middle-aged man didn't speak. He was waiting for the experts to come to his rescue. If you don't speak, I have my ways. Du Xiaofu was angry. He waved his sword and the tyrant shadow burst out with golden light, cutting off the middle-aged man's shoulder. Blood spurted out. The middle-aged man screamed in pain. The pain of losing an arm had nothing to do with one's cultivation. It was just as painful. Swish! The tyrant shadow slashed again and cut off the middle-aged man's ear. Blood spurted out. Spare me, where Miss Xiaojing is. That is the main place of the clan. We are servants, we can't enter without permission. The middle-aged man begged loudly. He didn't dare to remain silent. The young man in front of him was too cruel. Take me there. Du Xiaofu shouted, and the tyrant shadow slashed again. The middle-aged man's other ear was cut off and he screamed in pain. "Spare me, I'll take you there," the middle-aged man begged. This young man was too cruel. If he didn't go, he would be killed immediately. Du Xiaofu picked up the middle-aged man from the ground and flapped his wings. He flew forward under the middle-aged man's guidance. This space was boundless. He didn't know how big it was. It was like another vast world. Now that he had come to this dangerous place, Du Xiaofu simply let go of everything. No matter what, he had to see his mother and sister today. Du Xiaofu was fearless as he carried the middle-aged man. In this space, the energy of heaven and earth was rich. There were strange flowers and grass, auspicious beasts and auspicious clouds. It was a paradise. Suddenly, Du Xiaofu turned around and saw a large number of flowing lights flying towards him from the sky, their auras fluctuating fiercely. "You can't escape, let me go, you can't escape." The middle-aged man was overjoyed when he saw someone coming from behind him. "Lead the way." Du Xiaofu squeezed the middle-aged man's shoulder and pierced it. Blood seeped out. "In front, it's in front." The middle-aged man howled in pain and quickly led the way. Whoosh! The golden rune wings on Du Xiaofu's back flapped as he rushed forward with all his strength. His eyes were glowing with a golden light, and there was a hint of redness in them as he shouted, "Mother, sister, I'm here to find you, where are you?" His voice trembled and reverberated in the sky along with his Xian Qi. It shook the mountain and echoed endlessly. "Mother, sister, I'm here to find you. Come out." Du Xiaofu kept shouting, hoping that in this vast space, the two people he had been thinking about day and night could hear him. He had dreamed, but the two people in his dream were also hazy and blurry. "Mother, sister, I'm here to find you." Du Xiaofu carried the middle-aged man and flapped his wings. His eyes were blurred and his voice rolled, startling the white bird and auspicious beast. Today's update is complete. Chapter 762. In this deadly situation, Du Xiaofu wanted to see the two people he thought about day and night. He longed for them and didn't want to regret. Swoosh! In the air, there were bright rainbows that emitted a powerful aura. Many silhouettes rushed over at lightning speed, chasing after Du Xiaofu. Roar! The roars of demonic beasts resounded through the air. Many ferocious beasts flew across the sky and surrounded Du Xiaofu. They wanted to trap Du Xiaofu. "Mother, where are you?" "I'm coming to find you." "Sister, where are you?" "I'm coming to find you." Du Xiaofu shouted loudly. He was not unfamiliar with the words in his mind. He shouted them loudly and repeatedly. It was heart-wrenching. His hoarse voice shook the clouds like muffled thunder, causing the hearts of those who heard it to tremble for no reason. "Stop. Otherwise, I'll kill you." Waves of shouts and yells surrounded Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu flapped his wings and his eyes shone with golden light. He held the middle-aged man in his hand and looked at the mountain peak in front of him. There was a wave of energy there. It was a terrifying formless array. Once it was touched, the consequences would be severe. "You brought me into this predicament?" Du Xiaofu shouted at the middle-aged man. This place was already a predicament. The middle-aged man purposely brought him into this predicament. "Surrender. Otherwise, you'll be killed on the spot. You won't be able to escape," the middle-aged man said loudly. His voice was trembling. He naturally didn't dare to bring this young man to the main area of the clan. If he did, he would die without a doubt. This was a remote area of the clan. Once he arrived here, he would be surrounded. This young man had no way to escape. "You're trying to trick me? You deserve to die." Du Xiaofu shouted loudly. With a wave of his hand, he lifted the middle-aged man in his hand and violently threw him onto a towering mountain peak. Bang! Bang! The enormous rock at the peak of the mountain cracked apart and exploded, causing the earth to quake and the mountain to shake. The middle-aged man that was restrained by the restrictions sprayed blood violently from the fall, and his body had already transformed into meat paste as he breathed his last. Du Xiaofu's body landed on the peak of the mountain. His feet touched the ground, and a golden light erupted from his body. His domineering aura swept out, and his eyes were filled with coldness. Whoosh whoosh, densely packed figures appeared all around the mountain peak. Terrifying auras were all locked onto Du Xiaofu. Many of them were clad in armor, and their auras were at the martial royal realm. There were many terrifying birds and ferocious beasts, all of which were rare to see in the outside world. Not all of them had the terrifying aura of a beast emperor. There were also quite a number of terrifying auras locked onto the surroundings. At this moment, there seemed to be many obscure auras on the surrounding mountain peaks. Many figures had descended on the mountain peaks in the distance. Looking at the countless terrifying auras in the surroundings, Du Xiaofu looked up at the clouds, and a golden light spread out from his eyes. His emotions were complicated, and his eyes were red and hazy. "Mother, sister, I'm here. Where are you?" His voice was trembling and hoarse, and it was hysterical and full of emotions. It shook the clouds, but it did not elicit any response. In the ancient and vast space, energy fluctuations were like countless energy snakes shuttling back and forth. A 17 or 18-year-old girl was sitting cross-legged, and she looked otherworldly. Her tightly shut eyes suddenly opened, and a bright light shot out from them. Her eyes were red for no reason. "Why do I feel so uncomfortable and cry?" the girl murmured softly, and her delicate body trembled slightly. There was an inexplicable feeling that made her heart ache and uncomfortable, as if it was being cut by a knife. Roar. In the sky above the mountain peak, a terrifying white-scaled python, which was powerful and ferocious, let out a terrifying roar like a lion's roar. Its huge body swept towards Du Xiaofu. The terrifying white-scaled python opened its bloody mouth and spat out scarlet runes. Cold air rolled out, and the runes soared into the sky, directly shooting towards Du Xiaofu, wanting to suppress Du Xiaofu. Du Xiaofu shouted, and a dazzling golden light burst out from his body. His eyes were full of golden runes. "Kill!" Instead of retreating, Du Xiaofu stepped on the ground and leaped into the air. His 5 fingers were slightly bent, and he directly grabbed towards the white-scaled python. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's aura was like that of a peerless beast. Rock chaos shattering claw. The mysterious runes on his fingertips flickered, as if they wanted to tear the space apart. Energy ripples visible to the naked eye spread out from the claw. The incomparably domineering aura suppressed tens of thousands of beasts. Golden light burst out from his claws, and the dazzling mysterious runes were like golden lightning wreaking havoc. It was as if a golden-winged rock was about to spread its wings and soar into the 9 heavens. Such a domineering and terrifying aura burst out, and it immediately attracted the attention of the surrounding people. Many ferocious beasts were trembling. That was the supreme aura of the golden-winged rock. Chi. Under the terrifying claw, a domineering aura descended and collided with the white-scaled python. It was as if countless golden lightning snakes swept out in an incomparably domineering manner, fiercely sweeping across the sky. The rock chaos shattering claw was undoubtedly more powerful than the sky-shaking wings. Chi. The terrifying claw fell, but the white-scaled python was definitely not weak. The aura of the peak of the complete Beast King realm burst out, and it was very powerful. Bang bang! The runes all over the sky were shattered, and a terrifying energy storm spread out in an arc in the air. Chi. Under the claw, the white-scaled python's huge body was forced back, and Du Xiaofu's body was also forced back in the air. The two seemed to be evenly matched, but in fact, the white-scaled python was at a disadvantage. Several claw marks appeared on its ferocious head, and blood flowed out. Roar! The strange beasts roared, shaking the sky. In the next moment, several powerful and huge demonic beasts, like dark clouds covering the sky and moving mountains, pressed toward Du Xiaofu together. Roar! Waves of terrifying beasts swept across the sky, suppressing Du Xiaofu together. The vicious birds flapped their wings and the vicious beasts roared and brandished their claws. At the same time, the golden rune wings on Du Xiaofu's back suddenly turned into a golden vortex of light. An incomparably domineering aura swept across, and golden light suddenly burst out from the golden vortex, shooting into the sky. It was as if a sun was about to rise, shining brightly, like a sea of golden clouds rippling. The golden light soared into the sky, and the domineering aura descended from the sky. Many people were shocked. They saw a pair of golden wings spread out from Du Xiaofu's back again, and golden light flowed. The golden wings spread out, and a golden blazing radiance was emitted. A huge golden-winged rock phantom then spread its wings and soared into the sky. Screech! The golden-winged rock screeched, and the sound waves pierced through the clouds. Its wings spread out and covered the sky, and its ferocious aura spread out, causing the entire space to tremble. What a powerful aura! That's the golden-winged rock. The real golden-winged rock. Is that kid a human or a golden-winged rock? Someone from the Golden-Winged Rock clan has come to our clan? Some people were shocked and their eyes trembled. Many obscure auras fluctuated in the distance. Why does he have the aura of the Golden-Winged Rock on him? Strange. Strange, could it be related to the Golden-Winged Rock clan? In the distance, many people murmured softly. They seemed to know something, but they didn't approach. They didn't want to interfere and didn't want to show themselves. They just watched from afar. As the golden-winged rock phantom appeared, the majestic and domineering aura also rose directly, like a volcanic eruption. That terrifying tyrannical aura caused the numerous ferocious birds and ferocious beasts surrounding Du Xiaofu to tremble violently. This was a kind of innate pressure. Rock descends to the 9 heavens, suppress. Du Xiaofu shouted, and the golden-winged rock phantom behind him looked down on the world, flapping its wings to suppress all living things. In this space, the sky was filled with golden light, and the earth rumbled. The continuous mountain peaks trembled endlessly, and it was shocking to the soul. In the air, the purple-robed youth was wrapped in golden light. His body was straight, and the golden wings on his back stretched out like a rock spreading its wings. The purple-robed youth's entire body released an endless and majestic domineering aura, as if he was going to soar into the sky. I am the peak of the mountain, and I am the ruler of all beasts. Break. Du Xiaofu's shout was like thunder. His eyes opened, and golden light shot out, like 2 suns illuminating the sky, looking down on the world. The golden-winged rock wings on his back flapped, as if a real golden-winged rock had descended. Everything was like a miracle, and a supreme aura filled the air, suppressing the world. Rumble! Under such a terrifying aura, the runes surged, rising and falling like the ocean. The domineering and terrifying aura caused the space to rumble, as if it wanted to turn the world upside down. Puff, puff, puff. The terrifying ferocious beasts surrounding Du Xiaofu all spat out blood, and their huge bodies were forced to retreat. Roar! At this moment, the surrounding ferocious beasts in the sky hissed and roared. Under the terrifying aura, they trembled in the face of the golden-winged rock phantom in the sky. He is only at the mysterious level of the Martial King realm, but he has such strength. Are the people in the outside world so terrifying now, or is it because he has the blood of our clan in his body that he is so powerful? Someone murmured in the obscure aura in the distance. That aura is almost the same as that of the real Golden-Winged Rock clan. Is he really related to the Golden-Winged Rock clan, or did he just get a great opportunity? In the obscure aura in the distance, there were whispers of shock. The surrounding ferocious beasts retreated, and no one dared to approach. They all prostrated and trembled. The golden-winged rock phantom behind him disappeared, and Du Xiaofu's tall golden figure stepped into the air. The domineering aura on his body spread, causing the world to tremble. Chapter 763. Mother, sister, where are you? Du Xiaofu raised his head and shouted again, calling for his mother and sister. Everyone who heard him was moved. How dare you? Suppress him! A middle-aged man in armor flew across the sky. His face was gloomy and his aura of a beginner martial emperor exploded. The man condensed a palm print and it was as if a strange beast was pouncing. A terrifying aura surged and swept towards Du Xiaofu. Roar! It was also at this moment that a shout that was like the roar of a dragon in the 9 heavens and the long cry of a divine elephant sounded out from Du Xiaofu's mouth. causing the talisman markings to emit fluctuations before transforming into a palm print that was like a bolt of lightning. Buzz! Buddhist chants rang out as mysterious symbols streaked across the sky. Space violently trembled as overbearingness surged. In a flash, two palm imprints suddenly and heavily smashed against each other. A thunderous muffled sound of energy instantly resounded in this world. Rumble! A large number of dazzling runes shattered and a terrifying energy ripple swept out like a stormy sea. The impact caused the mountains below to shake and countless boulders to fall and shatter. Dang dang! Du Xiaofu's body was pushed back. The golden wings on his back flapped. When he stabilized his body, there was some golden blood flowing out of his mouth. The middle-aged martial emperor was also pushed back. His face became more and more ugly. Let's join forces and capture this kid. Several loud shouts were heard. Several martial emperors in armor stepped out. Among them, there was a terrifying aura of a martial emperor. Several martial emperors stepped out. The air around them cracked and spread far away. Someone waved his sword. It was a high-grade Taoist artifact. When he waved his sword, wind and thunder roared. Someone threw a punch. His fist was covered in runes. Light overflowed and clanged, shaking the sky. Someone's palm print covered the sky and runes exploded. His aura was domineering. Several martial emperors attacked at the same time. They activated their attacks and the energy suppressed the 9 heavens. This terrifying energy seemed to want to shatter the space and suppress the heavens and the earth. Boom! Terrifying energy burst forth in the end. Endless runes erupted and swept through everything. Poochie poochie! Du Xiaofu was finally defeated. He spat out a mouthful of blood, and his body fell on a mountain peak. The mountain trembled, and the boulders cracked and exploded. With the golden rock wings, Du Xiaofu was unable to contend against several martial royal realm experts, especially those above the mysterious level of the martial royal realm. On the mountain peak, Du Xiaofu struggled to get up. His purple robe was in tatters, and his hair was flying in the wind. Faint golden blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were golden and sharp, as if he was a ferocious beast in a desperate situation. In the end, he's just a martial king. He has some abilities, but he can't cause any big waves. A few middle-aged men wearing armors flew up into the sky with smiles on their faces. The mysterious martial emperor realm would not be able to cause any trouble after all. Du Xiaofu looked at the densely packed figures around him and felt that their auras were locked on him. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his sleeve and murmured, "Is this a sure kill situation? But I'm not a fish on the chopping block." After murmuring those words, Du Xiaofu took out the Xianyuan elixir and Berserker elixir and stuffed them into his mouth. Du Xiaofu activated his cultivation method and refined the energy. Faint golden runes started to flicker on the surface of his body. Then, Du Xiaofu put down the purple gold heavenly sword that he had been carrying on his back. The tip of the sword fell on the ground, causing the entire mountain peak to tremble. Faint cracks started to spread. Seeing that Du Xiaofu's actions were rather strange, the few martial emperors surrounding Du Xiaofu immediately looked at Du Xiaofu in surprise. Many of them stopped in their tracks. Du Xiaofu held the purple gold heavenly sword hilt that was wrapped in purple cloth. As his aura rose, he started to channel his qi into it. Boom! Just as Du Xiaofu's qi was channeled into the purple gold heavenly sword hilt, the mountain peak suddenly trembled violently. Cracks started to appear all of a sudden. Then, in this part of the world, the spatial energy started to gather continuously. Buzz buzz! On the mountain peak, within the purple gold heavenly sword that was wrapped in purple cloth, a dazzling light seeped out like a divine light. The light spread through the runes. The light became more and more dazzling. Faint roars of dragons, tigers, birds, and turtles resounded in this part of the world. At the same time, under the tip of the purple gold heavenly sword, the entire huge mountain peak started to shake. A large area of the mountain peak started to crack. Cracks appeared on the surface of the mountain peak one after another, like a spider web. Then, it collapsed with a loud bang. Rumble! Huge rocks rolled down and exploded. Under the many trembling gazes, the huge mountain peak actually split into pieces and collapsed with a loud bang. At this moment, within this part of the world, countless obscure auras were also trembling. The mountain peak collapsed. Du Xiaofu stood in the air. The golden rock wings on his back continued to expand, bursting with golden light. He held the purple-gold heavenly sword tightly in his hand. Roar, the strange roars of dragons, tigers, phoenixes, and turtles became louder and louder. It shook one's soul. Accompanied by bursts of wind and thunder, it was as if ghosts were crying and gods were howling from the void. Everyone's eyes trembled as they looked at Du Xiaofu. Everyone could feel that there was a terrifying aura that was about to burst out from that tall and straight body. I will not let this go. Looking around, Du Xiaofu stepped into the air. With a wave of his hand, the purple cloth on the purple-gold heavenly sword in his hand turned into ashes and dissipated. Woo-woo! At this moment, as the sky was filled with purple-gold light, the purple-gold heavenly sword appeared. The god of weapons was peerless in the sky. Dazzling talisman runes shot up from the purple-gold heavenly sword into the sky. A dazzling light erupted like a suppressed volcano. In this part of the world, there were bursts of wind and thunder. Ghosts were crying and gods were howling, as if there were gods and demons roaring. Rumble! The murderous aura swept out. Heaven and earth trembled violently. The surrounding space distorted and exploded. The terrifying scene was as if destruction was coming. The surrounding beasts trembled. Their gazes landed on the purple-gold heavenly sword in Du Xiaofu's hand as if they had been electrocuted. That terrifying divine weapon was entirely purple gold. It had the bones of a tiger and the body of a dragon. It was like a heavenly phoenix spreading its wings and soaring into the sky. It was like a red phoenix rising in the morning sun, sweeping across the 9 heavens. You all bullied me, coaxed me, and trapped my loved ones. Du Xiaofu attacked. He waved the purple-gold heavenly sword in his hand. Streaks of sword radiance wreaked havoc in the sky like thunder. Roar! The peerless divine weapon appeared. The dragon roared and the turtle roared. The terrifying sword radiance swept across the sky. The surrounding mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. A terrifying aura descended in the entire space, making one's soul tremble. Swish! The sword radiance swept out like purple-gold heavenly thunder. A martial royal realm cultivator used a high-grade Taoist weapon to block it. However, it was destroyed by the purple-gold sword radiance. Then, his body was wrapped in murderous aura and killed on the spot. Even if you are the sky, I will pierce through it today. I will not be bullied. In the terrifying blood-red eyes, monstrous murderous aura swept across the sky. At this moment, Du Xiaofu's body was surging with murderous aura. It was as if a peerless demon had awakened and was looking down on the world. It was enough to destroy everything. The peerless divine weapon in his hand slashed out again. The appearance of such a sword radiance shook this part of the world. A martial royal realm cultivator at the mysterious level crushed the purple-gold sword radiance with a spatial rune claw print and resisted the terrifying sword radiance. Whoosh! At this moment, the terrifying murderous aura in the purple-gold heavenly palace rippled crazily and devoured the surrounding energy of heaven and earth. It also directly swallowed the energy on the claw of the martial emperor realm mysterious level cultivator. The murderous aura swept out like a hurricane, as if it came from the 9 hells and the demon realm. It crushed the former ruthlessly. The martial royal realm cultivator in armor spurted out a mouthful of blood when the murderous aura entered his body. His claw was immediately shattered, and the terrifying purple-gold sword light landed directly on his shoulder. Crack crack! The sword light struck the heavens and the earth, splitting open the sky. The high-grade Dao artifact armor shattered inch by inch like tofu, and his body was instantly split into 2 halves by the sword, killing 2 martial royals with 2 swords. When he was in Tianwu Academy, Du Xiaofu could kill martial royals with the purple-gold heavenly palace. Now that he was in the mysterious martial king realm, Du Xiaofu could kill martial royals with ease after consuming the berserker pill. However, at this moment, Du Xiaofu let out a painful groan from his throat. The murderous aura in the purple gold heavenly palace was like a flood that had opened the floodgates. The terrifying murderous aura surged and poured out for thousands of miles. Du Xiaofu's soul and body were on the verge of shattering. The honorable weapon had told Du Xiaofu not to use the purple gold heavenly palace. Otherwise, he would not be able to control it. However, Du Xiaofu had been forced to use it when Tianwu Academy was destroyed. Now, in this deadly situation, Du Xiaofu had no choice but to use it again. Divine weapon, it must be a divine weapon. Sacred weapon, could it be a sacred weapon? The hidden aura on the surrounding mountains could not help but fluctuate violently. Countless murderous auras shot out from the surface of their bodies as if their bodies were about to explode. Du Xiaofu's face contorted in pain. He could only grit his teeth and resist. He circulated the golden-winged rock cultivation technique in his body to suppress the murderous aura. At the same time, he continued to attack and release the murderous aura. The purple gold sword radiance pierced through the sky and killed another martial royal realm cultivator. The aftershock of the attack caused the mountains below to explode. Hurry up and suppress it together. The next one will be here soon. Continue to attack. Continue. Chapter 764. Let's work together to suppress him. In the surrounding sky, there were densely packed armored men flying out together. There were no less than 100 of them, and all of them were at the martial royal realm. A large group of martial royal realm cultivators attacked. Talisman energy filled the air and talisman runes shot up to the sky to suppress Du Xiaofu. Kill! Du Xiaofu shouted. His eyes were bloodshot and filled with murderous aura. His murderous aura swept across the sky and he slashed out with the purple gold heavenly tower in his hand. Swish! The sword radiance turned into a thunderous purple gold light. The murderous aura swept out like a hurricane, containing the power of dragons and tigers. An armored martial royal realm cultivator only managed to block the attack for a moment before he was crushed into pieces. Du Xiaofu attacked ferociously. He was like a ferocious beast. His sword chi destroyed everything. Swish! Another armored martial royal realm cultivator was slashed into pieces by the sword radiance. He turned into a mist of blood and scattered in the air. The martial king realm was mysterious. Now, he was killing martial royal realm cultivators. It was terrifying. Bang! A terrifying spear pierced through the air and turned into a dazzling talisman light. It appeared behind Du Xiaofu with a clanging sound. Then, under everyone's shocked gazes, the terrifying spear pierced into Du Xiaofu's back. Swish! Blood flowed out of Du Xiaofu's back. The spear was a high-grade Dao artifact. Its energy poured out, causing Du Xiaofu to vomit blood. Break! At this moment, Du Xiaofu turned around and slashed at the spear with his sword. The spear was hit. Silver light scattered and sparks flew. It turned into two pieces. The clanging sound was endless. Kill! Lightning flashed as Du Xiaofu activated the lightning finger. It landed on the armored martial royal realm cultivator's face. Swish! The martial royal realm expert did not expect Du Xiaofu to not dodge at all. In his panic, he was unable to dodge. The finger lightning pierced through his face. The head of the martial lord realm armored cultivator exploded within the helmet. Half of the spear was stabbed into Du Xiaofu's back, causing blood to flow out. Du Xiaofu was fearless. He waved the purple gold heavenly tower in his hand again, and the sword radiance seemed to cut through the void. The cries of ghosts and the howls of gods resounded in all directions. Another martial royal realm cultivator was killed on the spot. Bang! A stream of fist imprints fiercely landed on Du Xiaofu's chest like a thunderbolt, causing Du Xiaofu's mouth to drip with blood. Du Xiaofu's resolute and determined face was already pale and sinister. The corner of his mouth held a cruel and cold arc. Kill! The purple gold heavenly false sword soared into the sky. Birds and turtles cried out, as if an exceptional demon god was awakening, destroying everything. Swish! The martial royal realm cultivator hit Du Xiaofu's fist, but he was immediately suppressed by the sword radiance. His eyes were filled with fear and his pupils constricted. He was unwilling to be killed, and blood splattered in the sky. This was a battle of a trapped beast. Du Xiaofu was like a trapped beast, struggling with all his might without caring about the consequences. One by one, the martial royal realm experts were killed on the spot. Gulp. Sounds of saliva being swallowed involuntarily could be heard from the throats of the surrounding people. The youth in the purple robe was so ferocious that it sent chills down their spines. Bang! 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 Several people joined forces and several terrifying attacks swept over Du Xiaofu's body. The entire space seemed to be about to explode. Poof! Du Xiaofu's blood splattered and his body fell from the sky. He was blasted into the messy peaks below like a meteorite. The rocks exploded and the gravel shot out. Du Xiaofu's body was buried in the gravel. Swish! Everyone looked on with trembling eyes. The youth in the purple robe shot up into the sky like a demon from the gravel. The youth in the purple robe was covered in blood. His face was pale and his face was as ferocious as a beast's. However, the youth in the purple robe was still filled with killing intent. The golden rock wings on his back were still releasing golden light, like a sun in the sky. He can still stand up. What a terrifying body. Is that guy a real golden winged rock? Someone was shocked. The youth in the purple robe's body was also terrifyingly strong. He had withstood the attacks of the martial royal realm cultivators. It was shocking that he could still stand up after that attack. Suppress him with all your might. Attack with all your might. Several martial royal realm armored cultivators surrounded Du Xiaofu again. Terrifying attacks swept over. They activated their beast energy, weapons, palm prints and fist prints, trying to suppress Du Xiaofu completely. His blood-red eyes were filled with killing intent. His face was as ferocious as a demon's killing intent shot up into the sky. Du Xiaofu opened his mouth and stuffed most of the elixirs and spiritual medicine into it. At this moment, all the qi in Du Xiaofu's divine watchtower was poured into the purple gold heavenly palace. Oh! At this moment, the azure dragon's shadow soared into the sky, the white tiger's shadow entrenched itself, the phoenix's shadow flapped its wings, and the black tortoise's shadow suppressed the heavens and the earth, accompanied by the roars of the gods and demons. Rumble! The roars of dragons and tigers, the cries of birds and tortoises, the sky was filled with thunder and runes. Puff, puff, puff. One by one, the martial royal realm armored cultivators were sent flying. Some of their armored cultivators cracked, some were drenched in blood, and some were directly turned into a bloody mist. Bang! Du Xiaofu's body fell into the messy mountain peak below again, causing the huge rocks to crack and the mountain peak to explode. Under everyone's gaze, the youth in the purple robe got up again. However, his body was also cracking, as if it was about to break open at any time. Blood spurted out from the broken spear on his back. His face was as ferocious as a demon's. Continue. If you want to kill me, then you have to pay the price. Du Xiaofu roared with his head held high. The purple gold heavenly palace pointed to the sky. What a terrifying youth. This guy is still young. One day he will definitely shock the world. It's too terrifying. Murmurs and astonished voices spread far and wide. The youth in the purple robe was like a demon, a peerless, ferocious beast. He was extremely powerful and wanted to kill the world. Swoosh, swoosh. Again, many figures flew into the sky and appeared in the sky. They wanted to continue suppressing Du Xiaofu. All of you back off. Suddenly, a voice was heard. It was gentle and slowly spread in all directions. As the voice was heard, a ray of light appeared in the sky. The light was auspicious, and a terrifying aura permeated the heavens and the earth. A figure appeared in the sky. The light was as dazzling as the stars. One could vaguely see the figure in the sky. As the figure appeared, the surrounding figures bowed respectfully with reverence in their eyes. The martial royal realm armored cultivators in the surroundings crawled back one by one. Sigh, this is an ancient land. How can you commit a massacre? The voice in the light sighed softly. It was a gentle voice, but when it entered one's ears, it made one's heart tremble and soul tremble. So powerful! Du Xiaofu looked at the sky with mixed feelings. His ferocious face and his eyes were blood red. This person was very powerful, but Du Xiaofu was not afraid. His murderous aura filled the sky. Even the air seemed to have frozen. Only the voice of the demon resounded from time to time. Why do you want to commit a massacre? The voice in the light entered Du Xiaofu's ears. His aura rippled as if he was the ruler of this world. Du Xiaofu looked at the sky and said, "You trapped my family and bullied me." Looking at the figure in the light in the sky, Du Xiaofu's eyes were filled with murderous intent. The surrounding figures could clearly feel that even in the face of such a powerful figure, the young man was not afraid. There was a bone-chilling aura coming from the purple-robed young man's body. The formless murderous aura filled the sky like a tide, causing them to shiver. What a strong hatred! This will damage your cultivation. It's a disaster, not a blessing. There was no fluctuation in the voice and it was still gentle. He said, "Put down your sword. The murderous aura is not something you can control now. If you don't put it down, you will explode and die soon." I walked out of the stone city and worked hard on the martial path, all for the sake of reuniting with my family. Du Xiaofu pointed at the glowing figure in the sky and said with a ferocious expression, "But you guys bullied me, coaxed me, and trapped my loved ones. Even if I explode today, I will drag a few more of you down with me before I explode." As soon as he finished speaking, Du Xiaofu pointed his sword at the sky. His proud bones clanged. "Give me the sword. If you explode, your sister can't be saved either." As soon as the gentle voice fell, the figure in the light moved. There was a clanging sound that resounded through the sky, releasing multicolored light. Boom! A runic palm print floated in the sky like a divine palm. It wanted to cover heaven and earth and directly suppress Du Xiaofu. Whoosh! Under the palm print, the space only fluctuated slightly, as if there was no sound. However, at this moment, the surrounding creatures trembled violently. The terrifying divine palm covered the sky and seemed incomparably radiant and holy. The divine palm seemed to flow with the mysteries of heaven and earth, making it impossible for creatures to resist. It also quietly suppressed Du Xiaofu. At this moment, Du Xiaofu suddenly felt a sense of despair. The divine palm crushed down, and its aura made him feel despair. He almost couldn't summon the will to fight back. The overwhelming aura made Du Xiaofu's body tremble. He couldn't resist at all. Am I going to be suppressed just like this? I haven't seen my mother and sister, I haven't taken revenge for Tianwu Academy, and my family hasn't reunited. I can't be suppressed, I can't die. Shouts resounded in Du Xiaofu's heart. There were too many things that he hadn't done yet. He couldn't be suppressed just like this. Mother, sister, where are you? The final burst of potential seemed to spread out from the cells in his body. Du Xiaofu struggled to raise his head and wailed. His voice was hoarse and filled with grief and indignation. The third update has been completed. Please support me with fresh flowers. Thank you, brothers and sisters. Please give Xiaoyu some motivation. Chapter 765. The sound waves caused those who heard them to be moved and those who heard them to tremble. At this moment, it seemed to have been infected by Du Xiaofu's anger and unwillingness. Above the purple-gold heavenly palace, a tiger's roar, a sparrow's cry, and a turtle's cry suddenly sounded. Roar! The silhouette of an azure dragon, an illusory white tiger, an illusory phoenix, and an illusory black tortoise appeared, resisting the divine palm in the sky with a peerless, ferocious aura. The terrifying aura, accompanied by the voices of gods and demons, shocked the figures within the light. The azure dragon roared, the white tiger galloped, the phoenix spread its wings and circled, the black tortoise screeched, and the four beasts circled around. The golden profound energy in Du Xiaofu's body exploded, and the golden wings of the great prang on his back expanded to over 1,000 feet in size. This moment was like a miracle. Du Xiaofu was like a demon god descending. Heavens, what a terrifying divine weapon. What a ferocious fellow. His ferocity is something that few people of the same generation in the clan can compare to. In the distance, gasps of surprise could not help but resound. Ah! Du Xiaofu howled miserably as he resisted the terrifying divine palm. However, his body was also lacerated and dripping with blood. Poochie, poochie, Du Xiaofu coughed out large mouthfuls of blood. The fiendish aura wreaked havoc within his body, corroding his soul and physical body. Brat, why struggle? You're just asking for trouble. Do you really want to see your mother and sister? A gentle voice rang out, landing in Du Xiaofu's ears. My family is here, connected by blood. I naturally want to see them. Du Xiaofu raised his head. The struggling azure dragon, white tiger, phoenix, and black tortoise circled around. If they will all die after you see them, will you see them or not? The gentle voice continued. When this voice entered his ears, Du Xiaofu's ferocious face was filled with murderous intent. Instantly, a look of confusion appeared in his blood-red eyes, as if he had been electrocuted. Your sister was born with a heart that shriveled and sickened by nature. She needs your heart. If you meet her and she knows the truth, she will naturally not want your heart. She would rather die than let you die. At that time, she will definitely die. If your younger sister dies, your mother will definitely be in so much pain that she'll wish she was dead. She'll definitely live like a zombie. What's the point of living then? His gentle voice rang out one sentence after another. That voice was long and sonorous and powerful. His voice also carried a kind of magical power that could penetrate deep into one's soul and reverberate in one's mind, making it unforgettable. You want to see your sister and sister? That means you want them to die. Do you really want your mother and sister to die? Do you really want your mother and sister and sister? For you? Do you really want your mother and mother and mother? Do you want your sister and mother? Your mother? Swish! As the voice continued to reverberate in his mind, the four beasts around Du Xiaofu on the mountain peak began to collapse. Blood spurted out from his mouth. His body cracked and pale golden blood flowed out. Swish! Then, the heavenly palace of purple gold was stabbed into the ground. The golden rock wings on his back retracted. Du Xiaofu's eyes suddenly became sluggish. Boom! The terrifying divine palm continued to collapse. It was accompanied by a holy light that covered the surrounding sky. It looked incomparably sacred. The divine palm landed on Du Xiaofu's head and immediately dissipated into nothingness. Don't think about seeing them. Let go of your obsession. If you want to see them, you will make your sister and mother pay with their lives. Give up. Within the light, the gentle voice resounded in all directions. It had a magical power. Du Xiaofu stood dispiritedly. His body was covered in blood. He was stained with the blood of many people he had just killed. He looked up slightly. The blood red in his eyes began to fade. Du Xiaofu was silent. His eyes began to turn deep. He did not speak. Obsession. Everything is just an obsession. If you really miss your sister and mother, if you really care about your blood relatives, you should save your sister. You have given your heart to your younger sister. In the future, you will be in her heart. The two of you will be one. You will be able to accompany your mother. I believe your mother will be happy with this outcome. Let go of your obsession. The gentle voice continued to enter Du Xiaofu's ears. Suddenly, young Master Du's chest trembled as if it had been stimulated. There was a faint purple flame that brushed past. His whole body suddenly seemed to have shivered. Obsession. Everything is just an obsession? Suddenly, a golden glow shot out from Du Xiaofu's deep eyes. His gaze was sharp as he stared at the figure within the light. He pointed the tip of the purple gold heavenly sword at the other party and said, "You just want my heart. You're just afraid that my sister and mother won't want my heart. You're thinking too much. If I want your heart, I can kill you at any time. There's no need for me to waste my breath. You're just an obsession. Or perhaps, you can't bear to sacrifice yourself to save your sister." The gentle voice continued speaking. It was infused with magical power, and it continued to enter Du Xiaofu's ears. "You're just trying to coax me." After saying those words, Du Xiaofu slowly lowered the purple gold heavenly sword in his hand. He sighed softly and looked at the sky. His drunkard father's whereabouts were unknown. Little Blue, Little Tiger, and Du Xiaoyao were nowhere to be found. He could only hope that nothing happened to them. Tianwu Academy hadn't been rebuilt yet. The citizens of Stone City, his master in the Ancient Heaven sect, and his two uncles were unable to see each other. There was also Dai Xingyu. He wondered if she was still unable to activate the talisman formation due to nervousness. Sigh, perhaps I won't even be able to speak a single word to her in this lifetime. Du Xiaofu sighed as he looked at his surroundings. Amidst the densely packed silhouettes, the two people he wanted to meet were nowhere to be seen. It was difficult for him to even speak a single word to them. My younger sister. Even though I haven't met her yet, she's still my younger sister. How can I not save her? There's no need for you to coax me like this. Du Xiaofu raised his head and looked at the silhouette in the light. Since you want my heart, I'll fulfill your wish. However, I have two conditions. If it's within my means, I'll definitely think of a way to fulfill your wish, the voice in the light said. It was still as gentle as ever, without any fluctuations in its tone. Du Xiaofu looked at the silhouette in the light and said, Firstly, I want my father, mother, and younger sister to be together. I know that with your means, it won't be difficult for you to find my father. As Du Xiaofu's voice fell, countless obscure auras in the surroundings rippled. These words seemed to be extremely sensitive and could touch the nerves of countless people. Du Xiaofu continued, Secondly, I want the boundless tree to be useful. The silhouette in the light seemed to hesitate for a moment before replying gently, All right, I can promise you that. However, the clan doesn't have a complete treasure like the boundless tree. We can only give you a section of the boundless tree. As the gentle voice fell, many obscure auras in the surroundings rippled even more. If that's the case, I'm relieved. Du Xiaofu looked to the east. The stone city was at the place where the sun rose in the east. His gaze moved slightly. Du Xiaofu's eyes were filled with reluctance and disappointment. His emotions were extremely complicated at this moment. Then, with a wave of his hand, Du Xiaofu used the last of his strength to entangle the purple-gold heavenly fault, which was hissing endlessly with a baleful aura, and tied it behind his back once again. Drunkard father, I really want to drink with you again. If you miss me in the future, then let your younger sister drink with you. I really envy you for having a son like me. Actually, I also envy myself for having a father like you. Du Xiaofu muttered softly, the corners of his mouth curving into a smile. However, the curve of this smile was somewhat bitter. Then he looked at the surrounding sky and was silent for a while, as if he was in a daze. Du Xiaofu continued to mutter to himself, Mother, sister, I think that we won't be able to see each other in this lifetime. I have too many things that I can't accept, too many things that I can't do. Master's instructions, the clan's expectations, I can't accept it, I can't bear to part with it. Sister, in the future, please complete it for me, oh. As his voice fell, a golden light suddenly jumped out from Du Xiaofu's body. Then, the golden light shone brightly, and energy spread out. Puchi. As the golden light shone brightly, faint golden blood once again seeped out from Du Xiaofu's cracked body. The golden light was about to seep out from his body, as if his body was about to explode. Du Xiaofu's body was already severely injured and cracked. At this moment, the position of his chest directly ruptured. Golden light shot out from his chest, accompanied by mysterious talisman patterns, and a supreme pressure spread out. Sister, you have to be well. Be filial to my parents for me, and protect my clan for me. As Du Xiaofu's voice fell, suddenly, in front of countless trembling eyes, his right hand became like a claw and directly pierced into the crack in his chest. A dazzling golden light burst out, drowning his entire body. Mother, sister, I want to see you. I want to reunite with my family, but I can't do it in the end. Forgive me. His loud voice rumbled like thunder. At this moment, golden light burst out from Du Xiaofu's eyes. Qi-la. A faint golden and blood-red heart immediately appeared in Du Xiaofu's palm. This heart beat powerfully like a drum, spreading out multicolored light. It was wrapped in mysterious talisman patterns, showing a kind of vitality, and a terrifying aura surged into the sky. Chi Lala. At this moment, blood spurted out from Du Xiaofu's chest. The blood was faint golden, crystal clear, and radiant, but it looked so sad, as if it was the last of its brilliance. Du Xiaofu's chest was bleeding, but there was a smile on his face. At this moment, the surroundings were silent, and countless gazes were trembling. Sigh. Countless obscure auras in the surroundings were sluggish, and then fluctuations rose and fell one after another, with sighs coming out one after another. Big brother, you're so heartless, so heartless. He's third sister's child, and he's also your nephew. Why didn't you just kill him? Why did you have to kill him like this? He's still a child. Do you think that you can sit back and relax just because you're not stained with a single drop of blood? At this moment, there was also a voice that was hoarse, and it resounded in the sky. Flowers, thank you all. Flowers. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.